Alert, you are running dangerously low on time. Quest initiated, find a shortcut to story progression. Congratulations, user, you found Manhwa novel recap. We provide the +99 agility buff you need to skip filler arcs. Our new channel's first cinematic quest is Mist, Might, and Mayhem. Accept quest by hitting like, level up by subscribing, and activate all notifications by ringing that bell. Don't fail the mission. The mid-morning sun cast long shadows across Zhongliang County's bustling marketplace. A hushed anticipation settled over the usual cacophony of vendors hawking their wares and children chasing pigeons. A woman at a snack stall paused, her hands still clutching a half-wrapped bun. A man with a water jug balanced precariously on his back halted his stride, his gaze fixed along with everyone else's. Even the playful squeals of children faded as all eyes turned towards the village thoroughfare. A slow, deliberate procession lumbered into view. The rhythmic, groaning creak of thick wooden wheels echoed through the tense air, a mournful dirge accompanying the grim display. Visible between the stern, indifferent guards, rough wooden cages held their human cargo. Prisoners, their hands and feet bound, slumped within the confines of their mobile cells. Whispers rippled through the crowd. "Look at that!" A collective gasp. "Ugh, they're completely covered in blood." Their faces, gaunt and etched with the brutal marks of hardship, were almost unrecognizable. Once white prisoner garments were now a shocking, vivid crimson. The sight painted a grim, suffocating atmosphere over the previously lively village. The procession continued its slow, torturous advance. Suddenly, a small stone arced through the air launched from the crowd. It struck the side of a wooden cage with a dull thud. "You cockroach-like bastards," a voice snarled. Inside, a prisoner cried out, unable to evade the projectile. His pained grunt seemed to ignite something in the onlookers. Soon, a hail of stones and refuse pelted the cages. Thud, thud, thud. The bound prisoners could only cower, offering no resistance against the public's wrath. "Wretched things! Damn scoundrels! Take this and die!" The guards, far from intervening, simply watched with mocking grins, their laughter a cruel accompaniment to the prisoners' silent torment. This public display was the very purpose of the transport, a stark announcement of their alleged transgressions. High above the marketplace, from the second-floor window of an inn, a middle-aged man observed the scene with a detached intensity. He sat composed, sipping tea. Across from him, the county's government official, a man of sober bearing, noted his companion's subtle reaction. "Why do you react so?" he inquired, a hint of confusion in his tone. The man was not known for easily sympathizing with criminals. The middle-aged man's gaze shifted, settling on a particular cage. Unlike the others, this one held a single occupant. The prisoner's chest and abdomen were stained a deep, unsettling red. "He's young," the man murmured, almost to himself. The boy sat upright, despite his disheveled hair obscuring half his face. Yet, even through the grime and wild strands, his youth was unmistakable. He appeared no older than 16 or 17. A fleeting image flashed through the middle-aged man's mind, the young master he served, a boy of similar age. He quickly dismissed it with a shake of his head. Age had no bearing on the gravity of one's crimes. The official, having watched his companion's brief internal struggle, spoke with a solemn expression. "It's difficult to say until the execution, but despite his appearance, he seems to have committed the most serious crime among them." The middle-aged man's brow furrowed. "What do you mean by that?" The official leaned forward, his voice dropping slightly. "The brat you called young is the most vicious of the prisoners transported this time." "The most vicious?" Genuine bewilderment flickered across the middle-aged man's face. He couldn't fathom what heinous act such a young boy could have committed. Did he harm people? He probed, considering the gravest offenses known to the government. Treason was always announced, and that wasn't the case here. Only one crime remained. Murder. "That's right," the official confirmed. A soft sigh escaped the middle-aged man. For ordinary folk, murder was a terrible transgression. But for martial artists like himself, living and dying by the blade was a common affair. The official clicked his tongue, observing him. Tesk, tesk. As expected of a martial artist, this doesn't seem to faze you much. In this world, people die left and right. That may be so, but if you knew that kid's identity, before the official could finish, a stone, larger and thrown with more force than the others, arced through the air. It struck the boy's head with a sickening thud. The noise in the marketplace swelled. Blood immediately bloomed from the boy's scalp, staining his already crimson-splashed clothes. Yet, unlike the other prisoners who groaned or writhed, the boy remained utterly still, not a sound escaping him. "That young boy is quite a unique one," the official mused, astonished. "Does he not feel pain? His head is like that, yet how?" This unnatural stillness captivated the middle-aged man. He knew that those who had trained in internal energy could endure pain to a degree, but this boy was an ordinary civilian. To take such a direct hit to the head, a blow that could easily split a skull without a single groan, was truly remarkable. His lack of movement was even more impressive. The flowing blood from his wound became a nuisance. With a subtle twitch, the boy tilted his head back, as if merely annoyed by the wetness. This simple action unveiled his face, previously hidden by his unkempt hair. Instantly, exclamations of surprise rippled through the nearby onlookers. The government official, too, gasped, "Oh my." Even drenched in blood, his handsomeness was undeniable. Tall and well-proportioned features, delicate lines, a face that possessed a unique, almost ethereal charm. Peculiarly, his expression seemed gentle, even kind. With a face like that, how could he do such things? The official murmured, genuinely puzzled. The middle-aged man, however, stared at the young prisoner with an expression of profound shock, as if he had just witnessed a ghost. "You! Why are you reacting like that?" the official asked, sensing the depth of his companion's disturbance. The middle-aged man flinched, then quickly shook his head. "It's nothing!" "Nothing?" The denial was unconvincing. Just moments before, his face had contorted with a shock that was anything but nothing. As the official prepared to press him further, the middle-aged man abruptly rose from his seat. "The tea was delicious," he declared, his voice firm. "It seems I have an urgent matter to attend to." "Oh my. We finally met after so long." The official's disappointment was evident. "I'm in a hurry. Next time we meet, I'll treat you lavishly at Moon Fragrance Tower." At the mention of the district's most luxurious courtesan house, the corners of the government official's mouth twitched into a pleased smile. What man wouldn't be delighted by such an offer? The deep quiet of the Chu hour, just before dawn, settled over Zhongyang County's government prison. In the subterranean level, the air was heavy with the silence of slumber. Most of the imprisoned criminals lay in the depths of sleep, their heavy breaths the only sounds. Even the guards, tasked with watching over them, succumbed to the late hour, their heads nodding against the cold stone walls. Only one person remained awake. The young prisoner, his hair still disheveled from his ordeal, sat upright. His gaze was fixed blankly on the cell wall. It had been 4 days since he had miraculously stirred from the brink of death. Much had transpired in that short time. He had somehow survived, only to awaken and find himself shackled as a criminal. The date of his public execution was already set, the punishment quartering. It was a gruesome end, where his limbs would be tied to separate carts and torn asunder, a brutal, drawn-out demise. Sign a fitting punishment, I suppose, he thought, a flicker of cold acceptance in his eyes. He had earned the moniker sickle-slaying demon for the sheer brutality and scale of his killings. Regardless of the method, escaping the death penalty was an impossibility. Yet, there was no hint of regret, no anxious tremor in his stillness. His mind was consumed by something else entirely. "What? Martial arts?" "Hey, kid, have you perhaps ever met a martial artist?" The words echoed from a fellow prisoner, transported alongside him. That casual remark had provided the answer to a question that had festered within him. Martial artist! He had heard tales, whispers from the village when he accompanied his grandfather. They spoke of individuals who could run faster than horses, whose strength surpassed that of ordinary men, all achieved by cultivating something called ki. What he had dismissed as mere rumor, a fantastical exaggeration, had proven terrifyingly true. That man, the one who had brought him to the brink of death, had done so in the blink of an eye. This! The result would be the same even if we met again. He had spent the sleepless nights replaying the encounter, searching for an alternative outcome. There was no way to kill that man, not even with a surprise attack, not with a meticulously laid trap. That man was a monster cloaked in human flesh. Are martial artists originally that strong? If that were the case, avenging his grandfather might remain an unreachable dream. No matter how much he struggled, if his nemesis was an insurmountable force, then a sudden realization struck him. Martial arts. The fundamental difference between them was stark. One had learned the ways of martial arts, the other had not. That single disparity had determined the brutal outcome. The conclusion, then, seemed deceptively simple. I need martial arts. If the conditions were equal, the outcome could change. He had finally found his answer. However, two formidable problems loomed before him. The first was the immediate urgency of escape. If he remained here, immobile, the quartering would claim him, his body torn limb from limb. The second was the path to learning martial arts. Who do I learn from? He had no idea how to even begin finding someone to teach him, and even if he somehow broke free, he would be a wanted criminal. A warrant for his arrest would swiftly follow his escape. Who would be willing to teach a fugitive the forbidden arts of combat? A complicated situation. His mind spun, chaos threatening to consume him. He understood now that his grandfather's warning had been profound. No matter how compelling the thirst for revenge, he should never have so easily revealed his hidden nature. It's like I dug my own grave. The realization, however, came too late. The consequences had already begun to unfold. The only fortunate aspect was that the man who had nearly killed him seemed unaware of his survival. Or perhaps he knew, but simply left him to face his inevitable execution. A faint, almost imperceptible sound broke the prison's oppressive silence. Swish! He turned his head, straining to identify its origin. Holding his breath, he focused, his senses sharpening, honing in on the subtle disturbances in the air. What is it? Then something caught his eye. A faint, ethereal haze like mist was spreading from beneath the right side of his prison cell. His eyes narrowed. Is there a fire? He wondered if the prison building was aflame. But the thought quickly dissipated. There was no commotion, no shouts, no discernible heat. It was far too quiet for a fire. Then muffled thuds echoed through the prison. Thud, thud. The sounds emanated from the direction of the guards' posts. The haze, which had been gradually spreading, now seeped into his own cell. A faint, complex scent tickled his nose, and a few familiar medicinal herbs surfaced in his memory. Lizard's tail, female ginseng, Gromwell root, scented Solomon's seal. For nearly a decade he had followed his grandfather, gathering and cultivating various herbs. With a terrifyingly keen sense of smell, he instantly recognized the components of the faint smoke. Sleeping incense. Gromwell roots and scented Solomon's seal were known for their soporific properties. This particular combination would induce a profound sleep, lasting for approximately 2 hours. But he was different. The mixture is crude. Unless it was his grandfather's precise concoction, this level of sleeping incense wouldn't affect him. He had steadily built up resistance to various herbs since childhood. He immediately understood that something was amiss. On a quiet night, with everyone presumably asleep, sleeping incense had been deliberately spread within the government prison. He leaned against the wall, his attention solely on the sounds. Swish! Swish! The faint rustle of someone moving, their presence carefully suppressed, reached his ears. It was a sound that an ordinary person would likely miss, but it resonated faintly within his heightened senses. Who is it? They had deployed sleeping incense and infiltrated the prison. This meant they had a specific purpose. Very quiet footsteps moved back and forth in various parts of the prison, searching. What are they trying to do? He couldn't discern the infiltrators' identity or their objective. Then the footsteps changed direction, heading directly towards his cell. The boy lowered his head, deliberately relaxing his posture, feigning the deep sleep of the other prisoners. Swish! Swish! The footsteps halted directly in front of his cell. They remained still. Could it be? Click! The distinct sound of the cell's lock being opened broke the suffocating silence. Was it me? The intruder's target was unequivocally him. As this became clear, a flurry of thoughts raced through his mind. Had that man, the one who had left him for dead, returned to finish the job? But why bother if he was already scheduled for execution? It doesn't matter. Regardless of the purpose, he was undeniably the target. He regulated his breathing, making it as even and deep as possible, ensuring that the intruder would not detect his wakefulness. Swish, swish! The sound of someone entering the cell, their presence still carefully suppressed, filled the small space. Even with his eyes closed, he could feel the distinct presence of the intruder right before him. Tap! A light nudge from a foot connected with his body. It was a test, a confirmation of his feigned slumber. He kept his body loose, unresponsive. Convinced he was truly asleep, the intruder suddenly lifted the disheveled hair that obscured the front of his face. The intruder's steady breathing faltered, a momentary pause. He sensed it, a disturbance in the intruder's emotional state. From years of observing his grandfather interact with common folk, he had developed an acute sensitivity to subtle shifts in expressions, actions, and even breathing patterns that betrayed a person's inner turmoil. It's a chance. Such agitation was an opening, a vulnerability to exploit in an enemy. With a sudden burst of power, he swiftly brought the wooden kang, which restrained his hands, upward with incredible force. Thud. Ugh! The defenseless intruder, caught completely off guard, took the blow directly to the chin and staggered backward. He did not hesitate, immediately attempting to smash the intruder's head with the heavy wooden kang, but in that same instant, the intruder reacted, a swift kick connecting with his abdomen. Thud. The force pushed him back. As he recoiled, the intruder's fingers moved with blinding speed, striking several acupuncture points on his chest. Tap, 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 tap. A strange stiffness immediately seized his body, rendering him immobile. As he grappled with this sudden paralysis, the intruder, their voice laced with disbelief, muttered, "How are you not asleep?" The prison cell hung thick with a sweet mist. It had put every other prisoner to sleep. Yet, for the boy, consciousness remained. He was sharply, unnervingly awake. Muffled sounds drifted from the corridor, keys clinking, then soft, deliberate footsteps drawing nearer. His body, bound by wooden restraints, felt numb. His mind, however, was keenly aware. A shadow detached itself from the gloom. The masked intruder paused at the cell door. He assessed the stillness. The sleeping incense, meant for all, failed its purpose here. The boy remained alert. The intruder's gaze, though hidden, felt like a weight. He moved closer. A gloved hand pressed against the boy's abdomen. He sought internal energy, a subtle rebound. There was none. The boy possessed no martial arts skill. He was an ordinary person, as claimed. Yet, he was not ordinary. His dark, unblinking eyes met the intruder's veiled gaze directly. There was no fear, no plea, only an unsettling calm. He observed the intruder. This was not a typical reaction for a death row inmate. It stirred unease in the seasoned man. The boy was an enigma. A new voice, sharp and impatient, broke the quiet. "Haven't you found him yet?" Another masked figure entered the grim prison. This one was smaller, a slender build suggesting youth. The first intruder, Guardgam, turned. He began to speak, but the newcomer's gaze had already fixed on the boy. "Is that him?" the masked youngster demanded. He pointed at the prisoner. Guardgam gave a curt nod. "Yes, it is." The younger figure hesitated briefly. "I can't see his face clearly. Guardgam, lift his hair." The command was sharp and imperious. Guardgam paused. Then his hand moved swiftly. He brushed aside the matted strands from the boy's face. A soft gasp escaped the masked youngster. "Aha!" It was pure astonishment. The boy watched them, confused. Why this powerful reaction from both? Then the younger figure untied his mask. It fell away. A tremor went through the boy. His own eyes widened. He gazed into a mirror, yet it wasn't truly his reflection. The face resembled his own, with unnerving precision. The same eyes, the same jawline, even subtle nuances. They could have been twins. "Do we look alike?" the unmasked youngster asked. His voice held disbelief and fascination. "Almost identical," Guardgam replied, still in shock. "Truly amazing," the youngster murmured. "I was also shocked when I first saw this fellow," Guardgam admitted. "I can see why," the young master agreed, his initial impatience eclipsed. Such an uncanny resemblance between complete strangers was astronomical. Yet here they stood, two individuals with identical countenances, One a privileged young master, the other a condemned prisoner. After a moment of shared wonder, the youngster approached the boy. "You! You're a death row inmate, right?" The question hung. The boy's mute acupoint was sealed. He could not speak. The youngster looked pointedly at Guardgam. With precise taps, Guardgam released the sealed point on the boy's chest. A steady breath escaped. "Now you can answer. You're a death row inmate, right?" the youngster repeated. The boy paused. His voice was steady. That's right." A smirk played on the youngster's lips. "You seem to be well aware of your situation," he observed. He crossed his arms, radiating an easy, entitled arrogance. "I heard your execution is scheduled for the day after tomorrow, right?" the youngster continued. "That's correct. What would you do if you had a chance to live a little longer?" The boy's reply was primal. I want to live." A soft, satisfied chuckle escaped the youngster. "Heh, of course you would." He clearly relished the boy's vulnerability, the sudden flicker of hope. Mok Gyong-un, the third young master, couldn't hide his satisfaction. A death row inmate, facing oblivion, would grasp at any hope. Such an opportunity doesn't come easily. You're quite a lucky fellow for a death row inmate. He grinned, a predatory smile. "Are you giving me an opportunity?" the boy asked. "That's right. A very big opportunity." "What is it?" "Even if it's only for 5 days, it's not often that a bastard like you gets to live as Mok Gyong-un, the third young master of the great Yeon Mok Sword Manor." The name meant nothing to the boy. He knew nothing of prestigious martial arts clans. Yet the proposition's core was clear. "You want me to be a stand-in?" The question was direct. Mok Gyong-un's mouth curled in satisfaction. "You're not stupid. That's right. Why would I need a death row inmate like you? What I need is that face of yours." He needed a disposable double. "Do I just need to be a stand-in?" the boy pressed. "It's only for 5 days. Were you expecting some grand task? All you have to do is stay confined in the clan's villa and pretend to be the real young master." "I see." The boy's tone was neutral. "You get to enjoy life as the young master of a prestigious clan for 5 days, and in return, you get to keep your life. What a great opportunity, isn't it?" Mok Gyong-un's voice oozed condescension. The boy understood the risks. A stand-in was a shield. There would be hidden dangers, but what choice did he have? Execution loomed. "Please give me the opportunity." Mok Gyong-un chuckled, a dry sound. He gestured. Guardgam produced a small leather pouch. The boy's eyes narrowed slightly. "What is that?" he asked. "Eat it," Guardgam commanded. The elder guard extracted a black pill. A foul, acrid smell wafted from it. It was no medicine. Guardgam brought the pill to the boy's lips. "Is it poison?" The boy's question was a stark acknowledgment. Mok Gyong-un scoffed. "Did you think I would trust a mere death row inmate like you just like that?" His words confirmed it. This was leverage. "If you complete the substitution, I'll give you the antidote." "Heh heh heh." The young master's laugh was chilling. Guardgam pressed the bitter pill against the boy's mouth. "Open your mouth." There was no choice. Resistance meant certain death. He met Mok Gyong-un's grin with his unblinking gaze. Slowly, the boy opened his mouth. He accepted the black pill. Guardgam watched him chew. Most people would show distress. But the boy chewed steadily. There was no discomfort, no fear. He swallowed. His throat worked smoothly. He wasn't simply gulping it. He processed the act with unsettling detachment. "He's indeed different," Guardgam mused. "This prisoner was dangerous. The poison pill was a necessary precaution." The boy stopped chewing. He opened his mouth wide. "I swallowed it, young master. There was nothing left." Mok Gyong-un, satisfied, ordered, "Untie him now." Guardgam nodded. He took a key from his belt. The heavy metal clasps sprang open. A faint sigh escaped the boy. Freedom, even this limited version, was relief. The weight lifted from his wrists and ankles. A sudden lightness filled his limbs. Guardgam moved towards the prison door. His voice was low. "I will lead the way. You follow behind me. Young master, please follow behind him." The arrangement was a safeguard. The boy, bound by the poison, couldn't escape. "Follow me." Guardgam reached for the heavy door. His hand closed around the cold iron. He began to pull. The hinges groaned softly. He had almost opened it. Then a sudden, brutal sound. A choked cry cut short. "You! A sickening crunch. Thud. Thump!" Gargam spun around, startled. His eyes widened. An impossible sight unfolded. Mok Yong-un lay on the cold stone floor. His body was oddly contorted. His neck was twisted at an unnatural angle. His face was frozen in shock. It happened in an instant. A blur of motion. The boy stood over the fallen young master. His hands were truly free. His eyes still held that unsettling calm. He looked at Gargam. His voice was steady. "What should we do about this?" he asked. "The death row inmate who was supposed to be the stand-in is dead." The words were chilling. The sudden, sickening snap echoed in the cramped prison cell. It was over before the bodyguard could truly register it. The third young master, Mok Yong-un, collapsing to the cold stone floor, his neck twisted at an unnatural angle. A tremor of disbelief ran through the bodyguard's frame, a fleeting moment of utter stupefaction. Then raw fury surged. "You bastard," he roared, lunging forward with a speed born of ingrained combat instinct. His hand clamped around the boy's neck, slamming him against the rough wall with a sickening thud. The absurdity of it all was a bitter taste in his mouth. Mok Gyong-un, though a mediocre martial artist at best, was still trained. This boy was a mere civilian, a condemned man awaiting execution, yet he had dispatched his master in an instant, a surprise attack or not. It defied reason. As he held the boy pinned, expecting panic or a struggle, the boy's voice cut through the stunned silence, calm and utterly expressionless. Even with sleeping incense, one shouldn't make such a commotion, should they? The bodyguard's brows furrowed. He was squeezing the boy's throat, but there was no sign of distress, no desperate gasp for air. The boy spoke perfectly, his gaze unwavering. A chilling realization began to dawn upon him. His grip tightened, his fingers probing. The boy's neck muscles were unnervingly dense, like those of a seasoned external martial artist. To break such a neck instantly would require considerable internal energy, a power this boy supposedly lacked. Had he cultivated external martial arts? The bodyguard dismissed the thought as quickly as it arose. Even external training demanded a foundation of internal energy, and this youth possessed none. This was no ordinary death row inmate. His mind reeled, grappling with the unexpected deviation from his meticulously laid plans. "You've gone mad," the bodyguard snarled, trying to regain control of the crumbling situation. "The young master offered you an opportunity, a chance for a wretched death row inmate like you, and this is how you repay him?" The boy's gaze remained steady, a disconcerting lack of fear in his eyes. "Am I misunderstanding the purpose of a stand-in?" the bodyguard faltered, his question hanging in the air. The boy continued, his voice a dispassionate pronouncement. "To be a stand-in is to assume risks in place of another. For me, it was merely an extension of my life by 3 days. But if you were willing to break a death row inmate out of prison for this purpose, doesn't it also imply you can dispose of them at any time?" The cold, logical assessment left the bodyguard momentarily speechless. This boy, condemned and supposedly simple, was far more intelligent than he had anticipated. An ordinary civilian, a typical death row inmate, would be consumed by the immediate threat, desperate to survive. How had this boy even conceived of such an act? He had not only analyzed the situation with lightning speed, but was now gambling with his life, even as death hovered inches away. What kind of person was this? The boy's voice broke through the bodyguard's internal chaos. "May I ask you something?" "You little bastard, can't you assess the situation?" The bodyguard growled, his anger simmering. "You claim to be a bodyguard, yet you remain remarkably composed for someone whose master has just died," the boy observed, his words cutting like ice. "Such rationality in a moment that should ignite a desire for vengeance suggests little affection for your master, wouldn't you agree?" A choked sound, half laugh, half exasperated sigh, escaped the bodyguard's lips. The boy was reading his very soul, exposing a truth he preferred to keep hidden. The boy was right, he harbored no love for the feckless young master. His current rage stemmed from the abrupt demolition of his carefully constructed plans, not grief. Killing the boy now, despite the circumstances, felt like the only logical course of action. Yet, if he lost this potential replacement, on top of the young master, the Yeon Mok Sword Manor would hold him personally responsible. His dreams of becoming a comfortable head of the manor, of a peaceful old age, were dissolving into dust. All his careful investments, his years of planning, reduced to nothing by this infuriating death row inmate. "If you have no particular affection for him," the boy continued, his voice unwavering, "then how about switching horses?" The bodyguard's grip loosened slightly, a flicker of confusion crossing his face. Switching horses? Wouldn't it be more convenient to think of the one lying on the floor as the prisoner scheduled for execution the day after tomorrow? The boy suggested nonchalantly. The bodyguard stared, dumbfounded, a chill snaking down his spine. This damned death row inmate was proposing to become Mok Gyong-un, right here, right now. His fingers tightened instinctively around the boy's throat. "Urgh!" A slight, pained groan finally escaped the boy's lips. The bodyguard glared, his voice a low, dangerous hiss. "Did you, a mere death row inmate, kill the young master with that in mind?" The boy chuckled, a dry, unsettling sound. "Is there any other reason?" The bodyguard swallowed hard, his heart hammering against his ribs. What kind of creature was this? His thought process was utterly alien, his cunning beyond anything he had ever encountered. Perhaps this very ruthlessness was why he had ended up on death row in the first place. This boy was dangerous, regardless of the manor's retribution. His instincts screamed at him to end it now. Getting involved with this fellow, regardless of his age or lack of martial arts, would bring nothing but disaster. He squeezed harder, applying more force, enough to crush bone even without internal energy. "Don't make me laugh," he snarled. "It's better for you to just die here." He would kill him. He would start over, somehow. Suddenly the boy's hand shot out, grabbing the bodyguard's wrist. Smack. "It's no use," the bodyguard scoffed, attempting to swat away the boy's hand with his free one, infused with internal energy. "I might have killed the young master with luck, but I'm different." Smack. The bodyguard's eyes widened in disbelief. The boy resisted, his hand like solid rock. It was like striking a thick tree trunk. He felt the immense resilience in the boy's wrist, the muscles beneath his skin unnervingly firm, capable of withstanding a blow infused with internal energy. In a swift, fluid motion, the bodyguard tore at the boy's prisoner garment sleeve. His eyes widened further at the sight that greeted him. Beneath the rough fabric, dense, corded muscles rippled, clearly visible. They were developed to an impossible degree, as if he had trained external martial arts for over a decade. The mystery of Mok Gyong-un's quick demise was solved. It wasn't just luck, it was sheer, brutal power. This physique alone surpassed the capabilities of a third-rate martial artist. If a man like this had properly cultivated martial arts, he would be a formidable expert. But internal energy cultivation had to begin young, before impurities could hinder meridians. A sharp ache shot through the bodyguard's wrist. The boy was exerting force, attempting to peel away his hand. What kind of strength was this? He was a 7th-level martial artist, yet this boy was trying to break his grip with raw, brute power. This was a powerhouse in strength alone. If he lowered his guard, the boy might genuinely break free. This wouldn't do. The bodyguard shifted, employing a grappling technique. He released the boy's neck and swiftly grabbed his wrist, twisting the joint and forcing it behind the boy's lower back. Huh? The boy's wrist twisted without resistance, caught completely off guard by the unexpected maneuver. A martial art? It seemed ingenious, using the boy's own strength against him. But at least the hand around his neck was gone, allowing him to breathe freely again. Shing! The faint metallic whisper of a blade being drawn filled the air. The bodyguard had produced a dagger from his waist, its point glinting menacingly. He intended to stab the boy. "Is there truly a need to kill me?" the boy asked, his voice still unnervingly calm. "What?" The bodyguard paused, blade poised. The sheer absurdity of the situation had made him forget. The boy had consumed the poison pill he'd given him, but remembering it only made his actions seem even crazier. Why would a man on a ticking clock do this, knowing his life depended on the antidote? Was it because he was the only substitute if the young master dies? This boy's cunning was immense. "I have no interest in the Yeon Mok Sword Manor or becoming the third young master," the boy stated. "No interest? Then why are you doing this crazy thing now? I just have a reason to live a little longer." "Live longer?" The bodyguard stared, utterly confused. What was he talking about? "Since you have the antidote, you can control me like a puppet as you wish," the boy said, his tone laden with a chilling significance. The bodyguard flinched. He had only seen his retirement plan ruined, his carefully chosen path to peace obliterated. He was tired of constantly investing time and effort in new ventures. He had searched diligently for his ideal haven. Control as he wished, the thought echoed in his mind, a tempting, dangerous proposition. He wasn't a fool. He knew this boy was profoundly dangerous. But if he clung to life so desperately, he wouldn't defy the bodyguard for a while, not with the poison pill as leverage. Should he take this opportunity to switch sides? His original reason for finding a substitute was to save the young master's life. But the young master was dead. Using this fellow to pivot, to secure his own future, seemed a viable, albeit risky, alternative. If he became a powerful figure and tried to manipulate this boy from the shadows, it would undoubtedly lead to endless headaches. Yes, he would use him, and then he would dispose of him. After a moment of grim contemplation, the bodyguard made his decision. "If you show even the slightest suspicious sign, I'll kill you," the bodyguard warned, his voice low and firm. "If you disobey my orders, you die." "Understood," the boy replied without a flicker of hesitation. "If you don't take the antidote for the poison within 12 hours, the poison will spread throughout your body. Remember that." Thwack. The bodyguard finally released the boy's twisted arm. As the boy rose, the bodyguard spoke, his voice heavy with the weight of the new reality. "From this moment on, you are Mok Yong-un. Understood. Should I call you Sir Guardgam?" "Yes. In front of others I can speak casually to you, right?" "Right." Guardgam did not relish being addressed casually by this boy, but clarity was paramount. The boy, no, Mok Yong-un, approached the lifeless form of the real Mok Yong-un. He began to undress the corpse. Guardgam watched with a look of distaste. The boy was already swapping clothes without being told, a chilling testament to his cunning. He felt a pang of pity for the dead young master. Swish, swish! Mok Yong-un stripped off his prisoner's garment top. Guardgam's eyes widened. Beneath the tattered fabric, his upper body was a canvas of highly developed, dense muscles. Even with red-stained bandages wrapped tightly around his chest and abdomen, the distinct contours of his physique were startlingly clear, hinting at an unimaginable power. To think this is a body that had never trained external martial arts. His earlier astonishment deepened into outright awe. Guardgam narrowed his eyes, studying the bandages. If they signified a recent, severe injury, why did Mok Yong-un's complexion seem so vibrant, his movements so unhindered? What kind of mystery was this? He would have to consult his acquaintance, the government official, to uncover the true nature of this death row inmate. Mok Yong-un, now dressed in the young master's attire, turned his head. "May I borrow your dagger?" "Dagger, why?" Mok Yong-un pointed to the head of the deceased, real Mok Yong-un. "The young master's body is more frail than mine," he explained nonchalantly. "I think I'll have to take the body and leave only the head." Guardgam remained silent, a cold knot forming in his stomach. The boy's logic was undeniably sound, yet his casual suggestion was profoundly unsettling. The best course of action, Guardgam realized, was to switch sides as quickly as possible. The lingering scent of antiseptic clung to Mok Yong-un's skin as he carefully peeled back the soiled bandages. His reflection in the polished bronze mirror revealed a landscape of new, jagged scars. A raw red gash marred the left side of his chest, mirroring another, deeper, angry line across his abdomen. He traced the marks with a tentative finger. These were not the superficial wounds he was accustomed to. Normally, even grievous injuries faded, leaving no trace behind. But the black sword of that monstrous man had carved something permanent into his flesh. They would likely remain, a testament to his brush with death. A wry smile touched his lips. Survival in itself was a victory. He had faced what should have been a fatal blow, a demise he had almost accepted, yet here he was, still breathing. His inherent capacity for recovery was exceptional, a fact he had long known, but this tenacity, this sheer refusal to yield, surprised even him. Perhaps, he mused, it was a sign, a decree from the heavens that his purpose had not yet been fulfilled. He still yearned for retribution, for the bitter taste of vengeance against those who had wronged him. Only then, he thought, could he truly find a semblance of peace, before he had to face the inevitable judgment of his ancestors. His mind drifted to the impossible twist of fate that had delivered him this second chance. Who could have imagined such an unlikely coincidence? A man with his exact face, a mirror image, yet utterly distinct in identity. It was a stroke of uncanny fortune, a gift that allowed him to shed the hunted skin of a death row inmate. No wanted posters would declare his escape. No government official would pursue the sickle-slaying demon. They would believe him dead, a convenient ghost. More importantly, the man with the black sword, the chilling figure who had hunted him, would surely assume his mission complete. The monster would not seek him again. Not yet. A cold dread coiled in his gut at the memory of that encounter. He had never before faced such raw, unbridled power. Martial arts. He now understood its necessity, its terrifying efficacy. To confront such a being, one needed mastery, not mere tenacity. And now, unbelievably, an opportunity had presented itself. The man who had shared his face was the third young master of Yeon Mok Sword Manor, a renowned martial arts clan. This new identity, a cloak of respectability, offered both sanctuary and a path to power. He could deceive the world, deceive even the manor itself, and in doing so, begin his true ascent. Yet a shadow loomed. His gaze drifted to the dark silhouette stationed just beyond his door. Guardgam, a watchdog appointed to ensure his compliance. The villa, though luxurious, felt like a gilded cage. He was confined, every movement watched, every whisper scrutinized. It was infuriating. A deal had been struck, certainly, but trust was a currency Guardgam clearly did not possess. How could he, when Mok Young-un had so audaciously executed the real young master before his very eyes? Such vigilance was perhaps to be expected. The thought of remaining a captive, a mere pawn, gnawed at him. He needed freedom, needed to act, to learn. Without it, he would be trapped, his revenge a distant, impossible dream. He was caught, immobile, between a blade and a hard place. Yet a soft chuckle escaped his lips, a sound devoid of genuine amusement. A gentle rap at the door broke the silence. "Young master, your lunch!" A young maid, her movements practiced and graceful, entered, bearing a tray laden with food. Beef and eggplant stir-fry, bean sprouts, and steaming rice. She placed the tray on the small, round table by the window, her gaze lingering on Mok Young-un as he finished buttoning his top and settled into a chair. Her heart fluttered. Of all the manor's young masters, his was the face that drew the most admiring glances, the one the maids secretly vied to serve. He was undeniably handsome, a feast for the eyes, and in the often monotonous rhythm of their lives, such small pleasures were cherished. But then, a flicker of unease, a subtle discord in the familiar melody of his presence. His smile, though faint, seemed unchanged. Yet a strange sense of unfamiliarity prickled at her, an elusive difference she couldn't quite pinpoint. As the maid reached for the empty tray, about to withdraw, his voice, calm and clear, stopped her. "A moment, please." "Yes, young master." "The beef and eggplant stir-fry," he began, his eyes fixed on the dish. "Yes? Next time, I'd prefer the beef less cooked." "But, young master, if it's undercooked, the blood—" she stammered, confused. He smiled then, a bright, disarmingly charming smile. "Beef is more tender when it's rare, and it's delicious when it's slightly soaked in blood." A shiver ran down her spine, cold and sharp. The unsettling feeling clicked into place. His mouth curved in a pleasant arc, but his eyes, dark and unblinking, held no warmth. They simply stared, unmoving, fixing her in place. Her body stiffened, a silent scream building in her throat. "Is there a problem?" His voice, still pleasant, seemed to drip with something predatory. Fear choked her words. The door creaked open, and Guardgam stepped inside, his expression one of faint displeasure. He shook his head, a dismissive wave of his hand sending the maid scurrying out with a low bow. The heavy door thudded shut behind her. Guardgam approached the table, his arms crossed. "I warned you against anything conspicuous, didn't I?" Mok Young-un calmly picked up a spoonful of rice. "Is asking for beef to be cooked less conspicuous? You are Mok Young-un, not a death row inmate." "The papers you made me memorize," he retorted, his voice even, "did not specify the real one's meat preferences." Guardgam's expression hardened. The boy's constant defiance, his casual insolence, grated on his nerves. Even the rhythmic chewing of his food became an irritant. He pulled out a chair and sat opposite Mok Kyung-un, his gaze unwavering. "By your tone," Guardgam began, his voice laced with annoyance, "I presume you've committed everything to memory, then?" "Yes. There wasn't much to it." "Not much? Ha! Then the eldest young master's name? Mok Young-ho, 20 years old, a mole on his left cheek. Obsessed with women, utterly incompetent among the 4 brothers, yet greedy and tyrannical." Guardgam's eyebrow twitched. Every detail was precise, echoing the blunt, subjective notes provided by the true young master himself. He felt a grudging respect for the boy's recall. "And the second young master?" "Mok Un-pyong, 18, droopy eyes like the main wife, cunning and treacherous, a piece of trash who would do anything to become the head of the clan." Mok Gyung-un recited the facts verbatim, the original young master's forceful handwriting betraying deep-seated animosity. Guardgam inwardly clicked his tongue. This fellow was sharper than he had anticipated, too clever for comfort. No further tests were necessary. Shall I recount details of the 4th young master? Or the real Mok Kyung-un's usual habits? Mok Kyung-un offered, a hint of challenge in his voice. "That's enough." Guardgam cut him off. "Then I haven't finished my meal. May I continue?" Eat and listen." "Understood." Mok Gyung-un resumed his meal, while Guardgam rose, hands clasped behind his back, and stared out the window. "Though you've absorbed the information on the sheet," Guardgam stated, his back to the boy, "you will have almost no occasion to meet others in this household. Why is that? Even with the young master's face, a long tail is easily stepped on. We need to avoid creating such situations in the first place." "So, you're saying I should stay cooped up inside?" "You catch on quickly. This feels less like a substitute and more like a prisoner. You volunteered to be a puppet, not a mere substitute. You chose this path yourself, so you will do as you are told." Guardgam's words were a stark warning, a deliberate attempt to quash any dissenting thoughts this cunning imposter might harbor. "I just need to do as I'm told, then." Mok Kyung-un's voice was deceptively mild. "That's right. Is there anything else I should know?" "No." At Guardgam's definitive answer, Mok Kyung-un paused mid-chew, his eyes narrowing. He had been given facts about the family, about the habits that would prevent him from being exposed as a fraud. But the crucial information, the why behind the need for a substitute, remained concealed. He had suspected as much. They wouldn't reveal their true intentions. This confirmation, however, clarified one crucial thing. They intended to thrust him into a dangerous situation, a predicament so dire it necessitated a stand-in. Otherwise, why the secrecy? They had compelled him to ingest a poison pill, binding him to their will. With the genuine Mok Kyung-un dead, he had assumed they would use him as their sole proxy for a prolonged period. But it seemed his utility was more immediate, and perhaps more disposable. They must possess another hidden card, a backup plan once his purpose was served. The corners of Mok Kyung-un's mouth curled upward in a savage, almost predatory smile. They were attempting to switch sides. The heavy door clanged shut, echoing Guardgam's stern instructions to the sharp-eyed middle-aged man standing guard. "Ensure he never escapes. If anyone comes looking for him, concoct an excuse, illness, anything, to prevent any direct contact." "Understood," the man affirmed. "I'll be out for a bit." Guardgam turned to leave, but the middle-aged man's whispered query stopped him. "Captain, is it truly necessary to switch out the young master?" You made him take the poison pill. Wouldn't it be simpler to control this fake fellow? Especially since you chose the 3rd young master." "That fellow is no good," Guardgam interrupted, his voice sharp. "What do you mean?" "He's not someone who can be easily controlled." The middle-aged man, Go Chan, inwardly scoffed. The captain was overreacting. This Fakes was a mere death row inmate, an ordinary man, entirely unversed in martial arts. Yet Guardgam spoke as if he were a formidable opponent. Perhaps years away from the front lines had dulled the captain's edge. If the boy proved troublesome, a swift lesson would suffice. But he held his tongue. Defiance was not an option. "I understand, Captain. Watch him closely. Should he attempt anything foolish, subdue him with the grappling hand technique. You may inflict pain, but spare his face. Oh, truly? A satisfied grin spread across Go-chan's face. It might even be good for him. Now, guard him well. Understood. 15 minutes after Gar-gam's departure, the closed door to the villa unexpectedly swung open. Mok Young-un stepped into the doorway, his demeanor casual, as if merely stretching his legs. Go-chan, caught off guard, instinctively blocked his path. "Where do you think you're going?" Go-chan demanded, his voice laced with suspicion. "Just outside for a bit. To the latrine?" "No. I thought I'd explore the villa grounds. I was hoping for some company. Perhaps you'd join me?" Mok Young-un's tone was disarmingly light. Go-chan stared, disbelieving. The captain had barely left, and the boy was already testing his limits? He spoke, his voice cold and flat. "If you do not wish to see a rough sight, return inside at once. Go-chan, was it? I don't think there would be any trouble if we simply kept our mouths shut." Before Mok Young-un could finish, Go-chan moved. Swish, swish, smack. He seized Mok Young-un's wrist, twisting it sharply behind his back. It was a fluid application of the grappling hand technique, a maneuver Gar-gam had suggested. The captain had noted the boy's unusual muscle density, advising against striking, opting for joint manipulation instead. Nothing special, Go-chan thought, a sense of satisfaction swelling within him. The technique, though rarely used these days, felt as sharp as ever. He leaned in, whispering into Mok Young-un's ear, the raw pain of the twisted joint a familiar comfort. "You seem to have forgotten your place. You are not the true Mok Young-un. There is no benefit in provoking me." "Squeeze!" He twisted the wrist harder, ensuring the agony was unmistakable. "Go back inside and stay put." He expected immediate compliance, a sharp intake of breath, perhaps a whimper of pain. But Mok Young-un's response was a calm, almost curious question. "What if I don't want to?" "What?" "Go," Chan snorted, incredulous. The boy was truly out of his mind. If he refused, what alternative did he envision? Foolish fellow. "Go!" Chan delivered a precise blow to the back of Mok Young-un's neck, infusing his palm with internal energy. Smack. With this force, he believed, even a man of unusual muscle density would lose consciousness. But something was profoundly wrong. The impact felt like striking a solid wooden post. Nothing. There was no give, no sign of collapse. What? Chan's mind reeled. He had expected the boy to crumple. He tried to summon more internal energy to strike again, but Mok Young-un's voice, startlingly clear, cut through his growing confusion. "You do seem weaker than Gar-gam." "This bastard?" Mok Young-un felt no pain, not a flicker of it. How else could he speak with such casual indifference after such a blow? A tremor of unease snaked through Go-chan. This wouldn't do. He tightened his grip on Mok Young-un's wrist, intending to twist it further and slam the boy to the ground. But then, a sudden dizzying lightness. His body floated upward with an astonishing whoosh. A moment later, he was slapped down, directly in front of the boy, landing with a sickening thud. He wasn't thrown violently, fortunately. He tried to bounce his waist, to push himself up, but Mok Young-un's right hand clamped around his neck. "Squeeze! Gah!" The grip was immense, terrifying. It felt as though his windpipe would crush, his neck snap, at any moment. "Go!" Chan's eyes widened, bloodshot, bulging with terror. He clawed at Mok Young-un's wrist, desperate to pry it away, to breathe. But it held firm, unyielding. This bastard, what the hell is he? How can he be so strong? Chan was a second-rate martial artist, his strength easily double that of an average man. Yet he was helpless against the power of just one of this unlearned boy's hands. Grr, he gasped, breath cut off. His face felt like it would burst. Struggling in agony, his blurring vision caught a glimpse of Mok Young-un's face. Smiling? The corners of Mok Young-un's mouth were pulled back, almost to his ears. It was the smile of an innocent child, playing with a favorite, helpless toy. The air vanished, stolen in a brutal compression. "Go!" Chan's vision swam, dark tendrils creeping in as an unseen hand, impossibly strong, clamped around his throat. He clawed at the constriction, desperate, but found only the unyielding flesh of a youthful forearm. A chilling, wide grin stretched across Mok Young-un's face. This was no ordinary captive. The grin was a mask of unnerving amusement, devoid of genuine warmth, spine-chilling in its detachment. A cold dread, sharp and absolute, impaled Go-chan. He recoiled from the unsettling intensity in those eyes. As the last vestiges of air fled, the captain's warning echoed. He's not someone who can be easily controlled. Go. Chan had dismissed it, but now, facing this raw, untamed power, he understood. This boy was an anomaly. He had no formal martial arts training, no visible internal energy. Yet, the pressure he exerted, both physical and psychological, was immense, crushing Go-chan's spirit. He strained, pushing with every ounce of his cultivated ki, but it was futile. The world began to tilt, his eyes burning as consciousness teetered. Then, as swiftly as it had begun, the crushing pressure vanished. Go, Chan collapsed, gulping in air, ragged coughs racking his chest. The taste of copper and bile filled his mouth. Amidst the searing pain, a baffling question surfaced. Why? Mok Yong-un, who had savored his torment, now stood still, his expression settling into quiet disappointment. I almost killed you, the boy stated, his voice a soft, almost regretful murmur. Go? Chan coughed, a choked sound escaping him. What? He rasped. If I kill you like this, becoming Mok Yong-un would be meaningless, wouldn't it? The words struck Go-chan like a physical blow. The boy was toying with him, a predator savoring its prey. He was a calculated, unsettling force. A surge of raw fury mingled with lingering terror. Go! Chan's lips trembled as he found his voice, a desperate attempt to regain control. Do you have the confidence to handle the consequences of doing this? He tried to inject authority, to remind the boy of his precarious situation. Without the antidote, you will die, and it will be a very painful death. He spoke of the poison, the unseen leash binding this dangerous youth. Surely this fake Mok Yong-un knew his fate, but there was no flicker of apprehension in the boy's eyes, only unnerving calm. It was too late. He had seen the truth. The captain had been right. This one was uncontrollable. A chilling thought solidified. If left to his own devices, this boy would inevitably betray them. It would be safer to eliminate him now. But at this moment, Go-chan was powerless. The upper hand belonged solely to this unsettling youth. He had to make the boy understand his position. If Gargam finds out, he won't let you off easy, Go-chan said, his voice dropping to a low, warning tone. That's probably true, Mok Yong-un conceded, shrugging. Go-chan pressed his advantage. But I'll consider this incident an impulsive act. He swallowed the bitter taste of capitulation. What does that mean? The boy asked. I'll consider it something you did out of frustration from being confined, so go back to your room now. He offered an olive branch, a futile attempt to regain authority. Go back to my room? Mok Yong-un's bright, unsettling smile returned, as if he found the suggestion hilarious. If that were the case, I wouldn't have bothered coming out. Go-chan's brows furrowed in exasperation. Did this boy truly not comprehend his dire situation? Poison coursing through his veins, his life hanging by a thread, yet he acted with baffling, reckless abandon. If the captain Gargam finds out... Go-chan began, desperation creeping into his voice. Yes, he won't just let it slide, Mok Yong-un interjected, dismissing him. But now, if you resist here, Go-chan pressed on. If Gargo keeps his mouth shut, nothing will happen. What's the problem? Mok Jong-un's brazen words struck Go-chan dumb. As his senior warned, this individual was truly beyond control. Go. Chan fought to suppress the rising anger, to keep his voice level. They must have told you that if you don't take the antidote within the hour, your life will also end, but you can't come to your senses. Before he could finish, a string of words, casual as a child's rhyme, spilled from Mok Yong-un's lips. Monkshood, aconite, hemlock, pinelia. Go-chan's body went rigid, his breath hitched. These were the deadly ingredients in the poison pill. Woodbine, magic mushroom, Dutchman's pipe. Is that about it? Mok Yong-un finished, a quizzical expression on his face. Impossible. Go. John felt the world tilt. Even one or two wrong he could have dismissed as a lucky guess, but every single one. He had accurately identified all the toxic components. The shock wasn't merely the boy's knowledge. The poison pill was a complex creation, its ingredients boiled and dried, forming a compound that defied simple identification. What are you? Go! Chan stammered, his voice thin with disbelief. Even the legendary poison emperor Cho Akugyong or the medicine immortal Munno would struggle with such a feat. He was supposed to be an ordinary death row inmate. Who was this person? As Go-chan stood paralyzed by astonishment, Mok Gyong-un offered a casual explanation that twisted the knife of his incomprehension deeper. Since I was young, I ate all sorts of medicinal and poisonous herbs. I tried boiling them and drying them. Go-chan stared, aghast. What? You ate poisonous herbs? The boy nodded. An herbalist must know their effects, they said. Go-chan knew there were darker reasons behind such a childhood, but it scarcely mattered now. Mok Gyong-un possessed an unnervingly sensitive perception, an ability to distinguish herbs with impossible precision. If he had tasted or even merely smelled something, he remembered it with absolute clarity. Even Go-chan's grandfather would have marveled at such innate talent. A herbalist, you say? Go-chan scoffed, attempting to inject skepticism into his trembling voice. Oh, you didn't know? I originally lived by gathering medicinal herbs. Mok Koyong-un's innocent tone felt like a mockery. Nonsense. How can a mere herbalist identify the ingredients in a poison pill just by tasting it? It was an absurd claim, a violation of all known principles of toxicology. Judging by your surprise, I guess I was right. Mok Gyong-un took a step, closing the distance. Go-chan instinctively recoiled, taking a hurried step back, his heart hammering. The boy's presence was overwhelming. Go! Shan blurted. Even if you know that, what do you think you can do? Making the antidote is even more difficult than the poison pill. He quickly channeled internal energy, preparing a lightness skill to flee if necessary. This boy was unsettling, unpredictable. He had to be ready. His only advantage was that Mok Gyong-un had no martial arts training. If he used the lightness skill, the boy wouldn't catch him. As long as he avoided direct confrontation, he would be safe. Crunch. The sound was sharp, sickening, a splintering crack. Mok Gyong-un had merely taken a step, yet the wooden floorboard beneath his foot visibly buckled, a deep indentation marring its surface. Immense, terrifying leg strength. Oh no! Like a tiger unleashed, Mok Gyong-un lunged, an impossibly swift charge. Jumping back was futile. The boy's speed was too sudden, too overwhelming, leaving no opportunity to create distance. Thwack! Mok Gyong-un's hand shot out. Go-chan, anticipating a strike to the neck or head, instinctively crossed his arms, but the attack landed differently. Tap, 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 tap. A series of rapid, precise strikes against his chest. Ugh! Go! Chan gasped, his eyes wide with renewed shock. He had been so certain this boy knew nothing of martial arts. There was no trace of internal energy, no hint of a master's practiced movements. Yet the acupoints Mok Gyong-un had just struck, the paralysis acupoint, the mute acupoint, were undeniably accurate, points known to stiffen the body and steal speech. Could it have been a lie? Chan's mind reeled. The acupoints had been hit with uncanny precision. If the boy had possessed internal energy, Go-chan would have been rendered immobile, his voice stolen. Yet, despite the dull ache and unsettling creakiness in his limbs, he could still move, still speak. What is this? He muttered, confusion warring with terror. Mok Gyong-un tilted his head, a quizzical expression, as if genuinely perplexed. Was it not like this? He murmured, his voice soft, almost childish. What? Go-chan managed. I tried imitating what Gargam did, but it doesn't seem to work. I thought doing it this way would make the body unable to move and prevent speech. Go? Chan stared, dumbfounded, then flabbergasted. The boy spoke nonchalantly, describing an attempt to mimic an action he had witnessed. He had imitated it. He had replicated the exact movements he had seen Gargam perform. Had Go-chan not felt the sting of the strikes, the partial stiffness, he would have dismissed it as an insane boast. He might have believed the boy had practiced for decades to achieve such accuracy. But it was imitation. Who was this person? The only reason the acupoints weren't fully sealed was the absence of internal energy, the strikes merely powerful pokes, not refined techniques. While Go Chan was still caught in his disbelief, a sudden hand seized his throat. Grab! Gah! He was caught off guard, vulnerable. He tried to kick at the boy's groin, a desperate movement to escape. But then a sickening crack. His neck twisted slightly, a sharp searing pain shooting through him. A fraction more pressure, and his neck would snap. His life was in immediate, agonizing peril. He froze, utterly helpless. Stop! Go! Chan choked, the words barely escaping his constricted throat. If you don't want the antidote. He clung to his last shred of leverage. About that, Mok Young-un interrupted, a casual, amused tone. It's still a secret from Guardgam, but actually I don't need it. What? Go-chan barely registered the words. He doesn't need the antidote? What mad nonsense was this? As he grappled with the incomprehensible claim, Mok Young-un's smile widened, revealing a chillingly confident gleam. Since I ate so many poisonous herbs from a young age, I developed a resistance. Resistance. Go! Chan stammered, his mind struggling to process the impossible. Well, my stomach would ache when I ate them, but a crude mixture like Guardgam's doesn't even faze me. Crude mixture? Go. Chan was dumbfounded. The poison pill, a potent concoction, a secret weapon still employed by powerful societies, capable of incapacitating even a first-rate internal martial arts master, requiring half a month of chi cultivation to detoxify. This boy called it crude. Just what was this guy? If anyone else had spouted such outrageous claims, Go Chan would have dismissed them as a lunatic's ramblings. But Mok Young-un's calm demeanor, his unsettling confidence, made it impossible to deny. A strange, unnatural authority radiated from him. At that moment, Mok Young-un did something bizarre. Chump! He bit his own index finger, a sharp, quick motion. Go! Chan watched, dread coiling in his gut, unable to fathom the boy's intention. Then, Mok Young-un brought his bleeding finger to Go Chan's mouth. W! What are you trying to D? M! Go Chan tried to resist, to turn his head, but it was futile. The iron grip on his neck held him immobile. Mok Young-un's finger invaded his mouth, the metallic tang of fresh blood filling his senses. Drops of it, warm and viscous, wet his tongue, then slid down his throat. He struggled not to swallow, but he had no choice. His neck remained clenched in an unyielding vice. Not long after the blood passed his throat, a searing heat erupted in his chest. Ugh! A burning pain, sudden and excruciating, engulfed his body. It felt as if his internal organs were twisting, being ripped apart. Even when Mok Young-un released his grip, the pain was so intense that Go-chan remained doubled over, writhing on the floor. Poison. It could only be poison. Go! Chan desperately tried to circulate his chi, to bring internal energy against the insidious burning. He pushed himself to sit cross-legged, a last-ditch effort to stem the agony. But Mok Young-un simply kicked him. Oof! Go-chan rolled across the floor, his body spasming, pain his only companion. Mok Young-un crouched beside him, his expression one of chilling, innocent amusement. There were a few things my grandfather told me not to do. One is this. Not only have I developed a resistance from eating many poisonous herbs, but he said my blood also carries toxicity. Go. Chan could only stare, gasping, the words barely registering through the haze of agony. What? He croaked, his voice a raw whisper. A dog I raised accidentally licked my blood and had a seizure. It was vomiting blood and going crazy. Mok Young-un's voice was devoid of remorse, as casual as a childhood anecdote. You! Go-chan choked, his body convulsing, the twisting pain preventing any coherent speech. Mok Young-un giggled, a light, airy sound that sent shivers down Go-chan's spine. He watched the man suffering with a childlike fascination. Swish! Mok Young-un grabbed Go-chan's chin, forcing his gaze upward. The boy's smile was unnervingly bright, devoid of malice, yet it struck Go-chan with a deeper terror than any explicit threat. It's okay, Mok Young-un said, as if offering reassurance. Grandfather told me how to treat it, and it improved. Urge! Go-chan clutched at Mok Young-un's knees, his eyes wide with desperate pleading, his voice lost to consuming agony. From now on, I believe you'll help me a lot. The words hung in the air, a chilling final declaration, a statement of absolute, terrifying control. The heavy air in the chamber pressed down, thick with the scent of illness and despair. A man lay on the silk sheets, his face a pale canvas stretched taut over sharp bones, his breath ragged and shallow. Each convulsion of his chest brought forth a cough, wet and violent, and when the old physician, Master Ha, dabbed at his lips with a clean cloth, dark, viscous blood stained the white linen. A weary sigh escaped Master Ha's lips. The end was near. He had dedicated his life to the healing arts, accumulating wisdom and experience through countless seasons. Yet this ailment defied all his knowledge. It was an unknown plague, a sickness that had no name, no remedy. The manor master, a man of formidable presence, was fading, and Master Ha, his personal physician, could do nothing but watch. He thought of the future, a grim tapestry woven with threads of conflict. The Yeon Mok Sword Manor, a bastion of strength, teetered on the precipice. Its master had failed to name a successor. This oversight would invite a torrent of blood, a brutal struggle between brothers. The retainers, loyal but helpless, understood the truth. The manor master had doted on his youngest, Mok Yucheon. The boy was a prodigious talent, a phenomenon that appeared perhaps once in 3 generations. He had mastered the clan's martial arts by 14, reaching the level of a first-rate master. Now, at 16, he stood at the very threshold of pinnacle mastery, his prowess among the elite prodigies of his age. His character, too, echoed that of his father. If the manor master had openly endorsed Mok Yucheon, the retainers would have rallied around him, cementing his position. Even his birth, as the son of a courtesan, might have been overlooked. But such a choice would have undoubtedly enraged the main wife, Lady Seok. A grave problem loomed. The main wife's devotion to her eldest son, Mok Young-ho, was absolute despite his reputation as a scoundrel. This unwavering support had emboldened the other sons, from the second to the third young master, to openly covet the inheritance. The moment the manor master drew his last breath, the manor would be steeped in fraternal blood. Master Ha, a man of medicine, felt powerless. He was but a physician, incapable of stemming the tide of familial strife. As he lamented, a soft creak announced the opening of the chamber door. His expression tightened, a silent question in his eyes. A woman entered, her face a mask of powdered white, concealing wrinkles that time had etched. Her lips were rouged a vibrant red, and she wore a profusion of opulent jewels and luxurious silks. Her eyes, upturned and filled with an almost casual arrogance, swept over the scene. This was Lady Seok, the main wife of Yeon Mok Sword Manor. Master Ha bowed his head, a deferential tremor in his voice. "Madam." "As expected," Lady Seok stated, her voice cool and detached. He nodded, a faint sigh escaping him. "My medical skills are lacking. I fear there is nothing more I can do." "I see. Indeed, he will not survive by medicine alone. It is my incompetence." Lady Seok waved a dismissive hand, cutting him off. A sigh, almost theatrical, followed. "When all the renowned physicians, including yourself, confess ignorance of the illness, calling it a strange phenomenon, beyond medical explanation, only one path remains." "Madam!" Master Ha's white beard trembled with agitation. He looked at her, his disbelief plain. Lady Seok's gaze hardened, piercing him. "With my husband's life hanging by a thread, are you in a position to be selective? But the art of divination is merely a bizarre method, dealing in trivial signs. How can such superstition? Did you not, with your own mouth, declare my husband's illness to be nothing short of a strange phenomenon? That may be so, but then why do you oppose consulting a diviner, one who deals with strange phenomena? Are you instructing me to simply wait for my husband to die?" "That is not what I meant. I do not wish to hear it. I have already summoned a diviner to the annex." "Physician Ha, you may cease your efforts and leave." "Madam, do you wish to be forcibly removed?" The words hung in the air, a chilling threat. Master Ha had no choice but to retreat, expelled from the chamber. There was truly nothing more he could do. Outside, he clicked his tongue in regret, casting a last look at the main building where the sickbed lay. She was bringing in a diviner for a strange phenomenon, he thought. She was determined to kill him with a diviner. "Me!" This is the current situation of Yeon Mok Sword Manor. What an interesting family this is. Go. Sean stared, dumbfounded. Interesting? He had just laid bare the treacherous web of deceit and danger that ensnared them, yet Mok Gyong-un found it interesting. In truth, Mok Gyong-un, the imposter, was in the most precarious position. If his true identity was discovered, he would face not just the wrath of the other young masters, but the retainers who would tear him apart. Yet he remained unnervingly composed. Go? Chan could not fathom the boy's thoughts. If he were in Mok Gyong-un's shoes, he would be desperate to escape. It was a situation without a viable solution. Even Guard-gam, their captain, was poised to abandon this troublesome youth. Mok Gyong-un would inevitably be caught in the middle and eliminated. You subdued me with poison, Go-chan thought bitterly, but there's nothing you can do about this, you bastard. For now, he was compelled to obey. However, he harbored no intention of aiding Mok Gyong-un. He had withheld crucial information, revealing only 7 parts of the truth, concealing the remaining 3, particularly those details concerning their own machinations. Just wait, he vowed silently. If he could only rid himself of the poison, he would expose everything. He flinched. His eyes met Mok Gyong-un's. A shiver traced a path down his spine. It was pathetic, he knew, to be so intimidated. But this boy was different. There was something about him, an innate quality that instilled fear. A devilish bastard, he concluded. That description suited him best. Those ominous eyes haunted him still. Guard, go. Why, yes. Go-chan straightened, his response immediate and instinctive. Regardless of his inner rebellion, his instincts screamed to obey the boy's every command. So, originally, the real Mok Gyong-un and Guard-gam planned to use me as a substitute and have the eldest young master, Mok Young-ho, kill Mok Young-pyong, right? That's correct. It had been their initial, most cunning plan. The fisherman's gain, they had called it. The strategy envisioned Mok Young-ho backstabbing the second young master, Mok Yun-pyong, who would have lowered his guard after the supposed elimination of the substitute. To facilitate this, they had even fed false hopes to Mok Young-ho through a courtesan they had recruited. Mok Young-un chuckled softly. They had put considerable thought into it. The plan possessed a chilling plausibility. If it had proceeded as intended, the main wife and her formidable maternal family would have been powerless to intervene. Indeed, it would have been a profound disgrace for them. It would have been good, Mok Gyong-un mused, but I became the variable. Now, he understood Guard-gam's desire to switch loyalties. Guard-gam did not trust him. If he had, or if he possessed the confidence to control Mok Gyong-un completely, he would have merely tweaked the original plan and executed it. But his distrust dictated otherwise. In the end, Guard-gam's change of heart and the family's turmoil would only work against Mok Gyong-un. Only one conclusion, he thought. He must either eliminate Guard-gam or win him over. Both options seemed exceedingly difficult. The latter was impossible due to Guard-gam's lack of faith. The former was equally daunting. Guard-gam was undeniably stronger than him, unlike Go-chan. Killing him would be a formidable task. Guard-go, yes. How much stronger is Guard-gam compared to you? Compared to me? Yes. Guard-gam is a first-rate master. He is probably 2 to 3 times stronger than I am. Go-chan possessed the skills of a second-rate warrior. Guard-gam, a first-rate master, wielded internal energy that neared a half-cycle of cultivation, numerically more than twice Go-chan's. Considering his enlightenment and refined techniques, the difference stretched to 3-fold. That was the typical gap between a second-rate and a first-rate master. In your opinion, Gargo, do you think I can kill Guard-gam? What? I mean literally, do you think I can kill him? Go-chan's brows furrowed. Had the boy, after learning the family's true situation, resolved to kill Guard-gam? Or had he deduced the imminent betrayal from the fragmented information Go-chan had provided? A gulp. If the latter, his insight was truly remarkable. What kind of person was this? He was operating on an entirely different level of intelligence compared to the real Mok Gyong-un. Is the question difficult? Gargo, you fought with me, so you should have a rough idea. Go? Sean hesitated, then answered carefully. Even if the young master is strong and possesses good movements, It is difficult to compare the technical aspects and internal energy of a first-rate master with a novice like me. So, in conclusion, I can't win, right? Yes. Don't be so cautious. I think so too. If he knew, then why did he ask? Go. Shan silently pondered. Mok Yong-un's next question shifted the focus. Then, if I learn this so-called martial arts, will the odds change a bit? What? What if I learn martial arts? Go Chan nearly scoffed. He acknowledged the boy's unexpected strength, his superiority over a second-rate warrior like himself. He conceded that Mok Yong-un was different from ordinary people. Yet, learning martial arts was a completely separate matter. He managed to keep his expression neutral. Young master, the foundation of martial arts is internal energy cultivation. Internal energy cultivation? Yes. It refers to circulating natural energy through breathing techniques, inhalation and exhalation, to gather internal energy within the body. And, as internal energy accumulates, you become stronger and more powerful. It seems to be that way. In his life, Mok Yong-un had never encountered anyone stronger than himself, but those who had learned martial arts were different. However, this internal energy cannot be accumulated overnight. Are you saying it takes time? Yes. It varies from person to person and depends on the breathing technique, but internal energy is formed and accumulated through long-term cultivation. Even if you learn martial arts now, can you catch up to someone who has cultivated for many years in a short period of time? And you're already too late, Go Chan thought. There was an optimal age to begin internal energy cultivation, typically between 5 and 9, when the body was flexible and meridians were unburdened by impurities. At Mok Yong-un's age, impurities would have accumulated, narrowing the meridians considerably. You're saying it's difficult in the short term? Yes. No, it will be difficult even if you cultivate for a lifetime. Go. John kept this fact to himself. There was no need to tell him, and doing so might only provoke Mok Yong-un and invite harm upon himself. It's useless to struggle, he thought. Now you understand your situation, right? The manor master was at death's door. Both the personal physician and other renowned healers had declared his illness beyond cure, an inexplicable phenomenon. When the manor master inevitably succumbed, no matter how much this imposter struggled, it would be the end for him. Just wait. When that moment arrives, I will repay all this humiliation. A thud startled Go Chan. Mok Yong-un had risen. He gestured to Go Chan. Let's go. What? Where? Was he trying to escape? That would be a foolish choice. Guide me to where the manor master is. What? Why do you suddenly want to go where the manor master is? Mok Yong-un chuckled, a faint, unsettling sound. Since my life is tied to the manor master's life and death, I want to see for myself how critical his condition is. Go. Sean's eyes widened. A chill crept down his spine. The heavy stillness in the corridor outside the manor master's chamber was broken only by the faint rustle of Lady Siok's silk robes. She had waited with rigid composure, a tableau of impatience and veiled resentment. Her gaze, sharp as a winter wind, fixed on the approaching footsteps. A man emerged, his silhouette framed by the distant light. He was a diviner, Myo-sin, summoned with a desperate, underlying hope. His shabby Taoist robe, emblazoned with a faded yin-yang, and a backpack bulging with ancient texts and strange instruments, did little to inspire confidence. Lady Siok's lip curled, a soft click of her tongue betraying her doubt as her eyes scoured his unkempt appearance. She cared little for his offense. Myo-sin, however, remained unperturbed, his demeanor one of practiced deference. "Can I see the manor master now?" he inquired, his voice a low, placating murmur. "Yes," Lady Siok conceded, a brittle edge to her tone. "That is fortunate. The longer a strange phenomenon lingers, the more dire the situation becomes. Please ensure everyone within 30 paces of the main building is evacuated. Proximity to such impurities could be perilous. I have already seen to it." Lady Siok's eyes narrowed slightly. What use were prying eyes when one conducted such delicate, private affairs? The surroundings had been cleared under a suitable pretense. "If Madam would also step back," Myo-sin began, a tentative suggestion. Lady Siok cut him off with a subtle, dismissive lift of her hand. "You remember our agreement, don't you?" A smile creased Myo-sin's face, thin and knowing. Of course. Good. Diviner Mayo is renowned for his miracles. I shall place my trust in you. Her voice dropped to a near whisper, a clandestine tremor in the air. Should you merely discern the location of the Manor Master's seal and secret manuals, 300 silver taels are yours, as promised. Oh, truly, my thanks. Mio Sin bowed repeatedly, his gratitude bordering on obsequiousness. Lady Siak watched him, a long, weary sigh escaping her lips. She harbored little faith in divination, but a recent turn of events had shifted her perspective, igniting a fragile spark of hope. Her gaze drifted towards the door, a flicker of raw resentment in her eyes. To think the son of a mere courtesan might become the successor. Her deepest desires hinged on this man's failing health. If only her husband had shown wisdom, none of this would have transpired. Meanwhile, Mok Kyung-un and Go-chan navigated the winding paths of Yeon Mok Sword Manor, heading towards the main building where the manor master lay afflicted. Go-chan, burdened by a knot of anxiety, frequently stole glances at the figure beside him. What was this man's intention? The manor master's life was irrevocably tied to Mok Go-young-un's, yet his current state was dire. Could he truly intend to save him? The thought was ludicrous. The clan's own physician, along with every renowned healer in the region, had long since given up hope. The ailment was dubbed a strange phenomenon, its exact nature unknowable, its prognosis grim. The very term signified an insurmountable obstacle. Go-chan's mind raced, searching for an ulterior motive. He found none. He couldn't decipher this fellow's thoughts, not one. More pressing, however, was his own predicament. Why was Mok Kyung-un so eager to interact, to be seen? Any unnecessary spotlight, any misstep, and his carefully constructed deception, his identity as a fake, could crumble before he could secure his escape with Gargam. Mok Kyung-un's sudden question sliced through Go-chan's troubled thoughts. "What is that place for?" He indicated a vast, open area with a slight tilt of his head. "That is the martial arts training ground," Go-chan replied, somewhat stiffly. The manor boasted 4 such grounds, including the manor master's private one. The third training ground served the ordinary warriors, the second was for retainers to hone their skills, and this, the first, was reserved solely for the young masters. A place to cultivate martial arts? A spark of interest, faint but discernible, flickered in Mok Kyung-un's eyes. "Go!" John inwardly scoffed. In a situation where life and death hung precariously, a desire for martial arts was nothing more than a childish fantasy. Even if he began now, how could he hope to catch Captain Gam? The very idea of a novice aspiring to defeat a first-rate master was frankly amusing. "Guard Go, Mok Kyung-un suddenly addressed him, his voice soft, almost playful. Yes?" "Go," Sean stammered, a jolt of apprehension shooting through him. "Every time I look at you, Gargo, I feel like you have eyes that are tempting to play with." A shiver of primal fear ran down Go-chan's spine. He flinched, stopping dead in his tracks. He turned his head slowly, stiffly. Mok Kyung-un's arm slid casually around his shoulder. "It seems you're not one of my people yet." How could that be?" Go-chan weakly protested, his throat tight. "You should look ahead, Guard Go. Is someone going to eat you?" Mok Kyung-un's eyes, unwavering, fixed on Go-chan's left eye, an unnerving intensity in their depth. It felt as if he could already taste the eyeball, a chilling desire. "Go!" Chan trembled, forcing himself to take another step forward. Mok Kyung-un's grin widened, a predatory gleam in his gaze. "It's a pity, right?" What? Cold sweat trickled down Go-chan's back. The more he interacted with this man, the more he felt an icy dread. He had stumbled into something far more dangerous than he could have imagined. He suppressed the rising panic, pushing forward. Then, a figure in the training ground caught Go-chan's eye. A boy, his upper body bare, possessed a striking, formidable presence. His muscles, tanned and well-defined, rippled as he practiced a horse stance, sweat pouring from his brow. It was Mok Yu-cheon, the youngest young master. His innate martial talent was undeniable, but it was his relentless passion that truly set him apart. He dedicated every waking moment, save for meals and sleep, to his training. It was no surprise the manor master favored him so. "He's attached," Go-chan murmured. The first training ground was practically Mok Yu-cheon's private domain. "Someone is training over there," Mok Yong-un observed. "That's the youngest young master," Go-chan whispered almost instinctively. "The youngest? Is that Mok Yu-cheon?" "That's right. Is that how martial arts are practiced? He's building leg strength through horse stance. The foundation of all martial arts, they say, comes from the lower body." "I see. Young master, it would be better not to stare at the youngest young master. You might get entangled unnecessarily." "Go." Chan's voice held a note of urgent warning. "Just by looking?" "Go?" Chan frowned, studying him. Mok Gyung-un must have read the information sheet provided by Guardgam. The real Mok Gyung-un's martial arts prowess was at a mere third-rate level, but this one, a fake, acting recklessly and clashing with others, risked immediate exposure. And there was a more immediate, more dangerous problem. The youngest young master truly dislikes the real young master. "Go-chan," whispered, his eyes darting around. "Ah." Mok Yung-un nodded slowly. The information sheet had indeed mentioned it. "I can't stand the sight of that lowly bastard boasting about his martial talent." "It's unlikely to happen, but if you happen to run into him, refrain from engaging in conversation." The warning was so strong, so clear, that something significant must have transpired between them. "Why does he dislike him?" Mok Gyung-un asked, a hint of genuine curiosity in his tone. "Go!" Sean hesitated, then leaned in, his voice barely audible. "The real young master disparaged the youngest young master's mother as a vulgar courtesan and got beaten to a pulp. That was 2 years ago. The memory was still vivid. The real Mok Gyung-un, a broken, whimpering heap on the floor, his leg bones and ribs shattered, begging for his life. That incident had cemented Mok Yu-cheon's profound hatred. "He seems to have a kind heart," Mok Yong-un mused, a chilling observation. "What?" Go-chan blurted, utterly bewildered, judging by the fact that he left his limbs intact. Go-chan's brows furrowed. This man's thought process was truly alien. Even if he was a fake, he spoke of himself, or at least the persona he inhabited, with such detached analysis. Regardless, this was not the time for philosophical musings. In any case, let's go quickly. It's better not to run into the other young masters right now. It could become really dangerous. "Go!" Sean urged him forward, his voice laced with renewed urgency. Mok Gyung-un simply chuckled, a low, silent sound. It was an interesting place, indeed, to witness such familial animosity. They bypassed the training ground, continuing their path to the Manor Master's main building. As they neared the pavilion leading to the entrance, Go-chan's expression tightened. What was happening? Usually the clan's guard warriors would be stationed there, a visible deterrent. But there was no one. The entire area was eerily quiet, not a single shadow stirring. This was troubling. Lady Seok had issued strict orders forbidding even the young masters from entering the main building, given the Manor Master's rapidly worsening condition. Go-chan had assumed they would be turned away, providing a convenient excuse to guide Mok Gyung-un back without incident. But now, it seemed, they would truly gain access to the Manor Master. Inside the Manor Master's room, an air of ritualistic dread clung to the air. Around the Manor Master's bed, where he lay still and prone, a dozen crimson threads crisscrossed, forming an arcane boundary. Between these threads, silver coins, pierced through their centers, cascaded downwards with a soft metallic clang. Diviner Mio-sin murmured, his gaze fixed on the Manor Master's bare chest. He had removed the top layers of clothing, revealing the ghastly spectacle beneath. Usually when summoned for a strange phenomenon, the issue was mundane, easily dismissed with a few feigned divinations. But this time, it was different. Black blood vessels bulged grotesquely from the center of the Manor Master's chest, an unsettling, living network beneath his skin. At first glance, it resembled severe poisoning, yet the affected area pulsed and shifted, a constant, insidious migration. "It's heading towards the heart," Mio-sin observed, a flicker of professional interest in his eyes. The bulging veins, a sickly pallor spreading around them, were relentlessly inching closer to the very core of life. Something, however, seemed to impede their progress, an unseen barrier holding them at bay. Mio-sin's lips thinned into a knowing grin. As expected of a martial artist, his vitality is strong, preventing the impurities from instantly penetrating his heart. with such potent killing intent that things should have already taken complete control. The Manor Master's struggle was valiant, but clearly reaching its critical juncture. From the look of it, he had been weakened for a long time, enduring the insidious affliction. "It's 50-50, Myo-sin assessed dispassionately. Even if the impurities were purged now, the chances of survival were negligible. Expelling both the impurities and the ingrained killing intent simultaneously was a near impossible feat, but that wasn't his mission. I just need to fulfill my commission. His task was not to save the Manor Master. It was merely to extract the location of the seal and secret manuals before death claimed him. Myo-sin reached into his backpack, extracting a parchment talisman. He poured crimson ink onto a prepared inkstone, its rich color stark against the dark stone. Tap, tap. Dipping his brush, he began to engrave characters onto the talisman, his strokes forming the grotesque outline of a ghost. He chanted softly, his voice a low hum. "The Emperor's proclamation, bearing the strength, the 5 directions. Why do you not perish? The flying immortal, 10,000 demons, demons' hearts. San-sti." The talisman trembled, a life of its own pulsing within the paper. Myo-sin attached the trembling parchment to the very center of the strange phenomenon on the Manor Master's chest, directly over the writhing black veins. Tap! Immediately, the black blood vessels, centered on the talisman, began to subside, their grotesque bulges receding. Myo-sin then formed a complex hand seal. Snap! Lin, he thought, bringing the index fingers of both hands together, interlocking the rest, a symbol of immovable roots. Tate, a while pass. Bai-eng, supporting the index fingers, spreading the interlocked middle fingers and bringing them together. Simultaneously, he began to chant the mantra of protecting and killing, a guttural, repetitive sound. Dabu, 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 abu, dabu. As the mantra echoed, the Manor Master's body convulsed, a faint, wispy vapor beginning to emanate from the talisman's point of contact. GG, Myo-sin interlocked all his fingers, symbolizing external restraint. The Manor Master's Adam's apple bulged, his face turning a purplish red as if his airway was constricted. Myo-sin's expression hardened. "The killing intent is too strong." Rising from his seat, he pressed his right hand, forming the Vajra Mudra, onto the Manor Master's Adam's apple, continuing the relentless chant of the mantra of protecting and killing. Before the final syllables could escape his lips, a creak splintered the silence. The closed door to the Manor Master's room slowly, inexorably, began to swing open. The 3 crimson threads tied to the door snapped, their silver coins clattering to the floor. Clang, 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 oh no! Bang, ugh! A powerful rebound flung Diviner Myo-sin backward, his body hurtling across the room. He braced for impact, unsure how far he would fly, when suddenly a firm hand gripped his back, arresting his momentum. Thud! Startled, Myo-sin twisted his head. The one who had caught him was a young man, impossibly refined, strikingly handsome. It was Mok Kyung-un. For a fleeting moment, Myo-sin was silenced by his sheer good looks, but then annoyance surged. He had expressly forbidden anyone from entering. "I told you not to let anyone in, so how?" Myo-sin's indignant words caught in his throat. His anger died, strangled by an unseen force. He had met Mok Gwayoung-un's eyes. They were still utterly devoid of tremor, like the eyes of a dead man. How can a living human possess such eyes? The question echoed in the diviner's mind, a cold, unsettling dread settling in his gut. The air in the chamber hung thick and still, heavy with an unseen weight that pressed down on Diviner Myo-sin. His gaze snagged unwillingly on the eyes of the young man who had just entered. They were empty, devoid of life, a terrifying mirror to the stillness of death. Myo-sin had never witnessed such a thing in a living person, and a shiver, cold and unsettling, traced its way down his spine. A rough cough broke the silent spell, pulling Myo-sin from his morbid fascination. It was Guard Go-chan, the man who had escorted this peculiar stranger. "Go!" Chan's voice was a startled whisper, filled with a raw confusion that mirrored Myo-sin's own internal turmoil. "What? What is this?" Go-chan's eyes scanned the room, wide with disbelief. Red threads, impossibly thin yet taut, stretched from wall to wall, strung with countless silver coins that shimmered faintly in the dim light. The sight was bizarre, a strange tapestry of ritual and unknown purpose. He had found it unsettlingly quiet outside the main building, a premonition now confirmed by this disorienting scene. "Excuse me, who are you, and here?" Go-chan began, his voice trailing off as he struggled to comprehend the surreal tableau before him. The young man, Mok Gyong-un, dismissed Go-chan with a dismissive glance. His focus remained on the room, his eyes moving with an unnerving deliberate slowness. "He doesn't seem to be a physician," Mok Gyong-un stated, his voice flat, a statement of fact rather than a question. Myo-sin, jolted by the interruption and the casual assessment, waved his hands in a frantic gesture. Time was a luxury they did not possess. "I don't know who you are, but didn't you receive a message from Madam? This is an important moment, so please leave immediately." "Madam?" Mok Gyong-un's eyebrow arched ever so slightly. "It's a moment that shouldn't be disturbed," Myo-sin insisted, his voice rising in urgency. Indeed, it was a truly critical juncture. Myo-sin was battling a grotesque phenomenon, a dark, invasive entity that had taken root within the Manor Master's very heart. The sudden influx of killing intent brought by these intruders had interfered with his delicate control. In this precarious state, the external malice would only serve to amplify the monstrous presence within. "Please leave at once," Myo-sin pleaded, his voice now a desperate cry. Every second wasted was a step closer to disaster. Go-chan, still bewildered, frowned. "Could he be a diviner?" he murmured, more to himself than to Myo-sin. "Ooh, that's right. I'm a diviner, so quickly," Myo-sin began, seizing on the opportunity, but Mok Gyong-un cut him off, pointing his chin towards the bed. "What's wrong with him?" Myo-sin whipped his head around, following Mok Gyong-un's gaze. Cough, cough. On the bed, the Manor Master lay, his back impossibly arched, a grotesque bow straining against some unseen force. His chest was thrust upwards, and his throat worked convulsively, a horrifying dance of pain. "Manor Master? Go!" Shan gasped, recognition dawning in his eyes, replaced immediately by horror. "Manor Master?" Mok Gyong-un's expression remained unreadable, a faint flicker of puzzlement, perhaps. The man's condition was unlike anything he had ever encountered. The arching back, the contorted throat, the agonizing struggle to breathe. It was a sight both bizarre and deeply unsettling. "No." "Why is the Manor Master like that?" Go-chan demanded, his voice thick with fear. "Leave! Hurry up and leave!" Myo-sin screamed, his hands reaching out to physically push the two men towards the door. This ritual, so vital, was unraveling. Just as Myo-sin's hands met Go-chan's arm, a guttural gulp echoed through the room. It emanated from the Manor Master, a sound impossibly loud, cutting through the tense silence. His back remained unnaturally arched, but the convulsive bulging in his throat had subsided. For a fleeting moment, a semblance of ease seemed to settle on the Manor Master's face, but then his eyes, previously closed in agony, snapped open. They were wide, unfocused, and devoid of recognition. "Oh? Manor Master?" Go-chan ventured, a flicker of hope in his voice. Had the Manor Master truly regained consciousness? A choked, ragged sound escaped Myo-sin's lips. "Shit," he hissed, a curse laced with raw despair. His hand plunged into the pouch at his waist, emerging with a yellow talisman, the characters, "Suppress," starkly visible in crimson ink. He lunged towards the bed, intent on attaching it to the Manor Master's forehead. Then, with a sickening, audible creak, the Manor Master's head twisted to the side. The movement was unnatural, grotesque, utterly inhuman. "Go." Shan's eyes widened to saucers. The Manor Master's eyes, already bloodshot, were now dyed a terrifying uniform red, save for the obsidian pupils. Coupled with the impossibly arched back and the twisted head, the sight was nothing short of spine-chilling. In that heart-stopping moment, Diviner Myo-sin's left hand formed a swift, single-handed seal. His lips moved, chanting an ancient incantation, the words a low, rapid murmur. The yellow talisman, clutched in Myo-sin's right fingers, stiffened, becoming rigid and unyielding. With the talisman now like a rigid blade, Myosin lunged again, aiming to press it against the Manor Master's forehead. But before he could make contact, a chilling shriek tore through the room. Kaya. The sound was less a human cry and more a primal roar, reverberating through the chamber. Ugh! Myosin staggered, the force of the cry a physical blow that sent him stumbling backward. The impact was not confined to him. Chan instinctively clapped his hands over his ears, his eardrums throbbing with agony from the sudden deafening scream. Internal energy was infused, Chan realized with a jolt. The Manor Master was a formidable master of internal martial arts, his internal energy profound and boundless. Naturally, such a scream would be imbued with that formidable power, its vibrations causing unbearable pain to those unfortunate enough to hear it. Chan, still clutching his ears, glanced at Mok Go-young-un. But this fellow hasn't even cultivated internal energy, yet he's unaffected? Mok Young-un merely frowned, a slight crease between his brows. Had he simply endured the pain, or was he truly impervious? In the depths of Go-chan's bewilderment, the Manor Master, having unleashed his terrifying cry, began to shift. His head righted itself, his back straightened, and he struggled to rise from the bed. A sharp cracking sound filled the air. The red threads, tied to the Manor Master's wrists and ankles, suddenly tightened with immense force. The unexpected restraint caused him to falter, collapsing back onto the bed in an awkward, constrained posture. A faint haze, acrid and pungent, wafted from where the red threads bound him. It was the scent of something unnatural, something being burned or consumed. Kaya, ah! The Manor Master howled, his bloodshot eyes fixed on nothing, his voice a primal, bestial roar, utterly devoid of human intonation. He strained, pulling at his right hand with a strength that seemed to defy the bounds of mortal men. With a sickening crunch, the open door, previously ajar, was torn from its hinges, and the red thread binding his wrist snapped with a sharp crack. Shit! Diviner Myosin, still reeling from the concussive shout, couldn't mask his despair. He had secured the red threads with meticulous care, but their intrusion, the very act of opening the door, had disrupted the fragile balance of his work. All was ruined. Black, serpentine blood vessels pulsed and writhed beneath the skin of the Manor Master's forehead and face. They throbbed with an unnatural life, a horrifying manifestation of the entity possessing him. To be possessed by a strange phenomenon. Myosin's heart sank. This was it. The true, terrifying form of possession. Now any hope of retrieving the Manor Master's seal or his secret manuals, as Lady Seok had requested, was utterly shattered. Such matters were trivial in the face of this grotesque reality. Amidst Myosin's internal anguish, the Manor Master thrashed, attempting to break every last red thread strung with silver coins. There was no time to question requests or intentions. Myosin surged forward once more, rushing towards the Manor Master, the talisman still clutched in his hand, desperate to attach it to the man's forehead. However, with a casual, almost dismissive swing of his hand, the Manor Master struck Myosin. Myosin crumpled, sent sprawling across the floor, his vision blurring. What strength, Sin was utterly bewildered. Those possessed by strange phenomena were known to gain strength beyond ordinary men, but this was a power of a different magnitude entirely. He was powerless to hold the Manor Master down. The red thread binding the Manor Master's left wrist stretched taut, threatening to give way at any moment. Diviner Myosin, seeing his efforts failing, shouted at Mok Young-un and Go-chan, his voice strained with desperation. "You two, help me! Hold down the Manor Master so he can't break the threads. Hold him down, you say." Go-chan, though still largely in the dark about the true nature of the situation, instinctively understood the gravity of Myosin's plea. There was no time for hesitation, no room for thought. He launched himself forward, rushing towards the struggling Manor Master. Mok Gyong-un moved as well, a silent, almost imperceptible shift. "Is it enough to just hold him?" he asked, his voice calm amidst the chaos. "Even if you hold him, never make eye contact, and if you feel your hands getting cold and a chill down your spine while holding him, let go no matter what," Myosin yelled back, his instructions ambiguous yet urgent. The advice was cryptic, unsettling. But with the imminent danger, Go-chan swallowed his questions and quickly grabbed the Manor Master's freed right arm. He had wanted to seize the fixed left hand, but something stopped him from asking Mok Yong-un to take the more dangerous one. A sense of self-preservation, perhaps, or a lingering distrust. But then a new problem arose. The Manor Master, though supposedly weakened, was a master of internal martial arts. His strength, even in this possessed state, was far beyond Go-chan's capabilities. He was a force that even Captain Gam, a formidable warrior in his own right, could not match. The Manor Master easily shrugged off Go-chan's hand. Instead, he seized Go-chan's wrist in a vice-like grip. "Huh? Go," Chan gasped, caught off guard. The grip was crushing, an unbearable pressure that threatened to shatter his wrist at any moment. In a surge of panic, Go-chan instinctively twisted the Manor Master's wrist, employing a grappling technique. To his surprise, the crushing strength of the Manor Master's hand suddenly lessened. Go-chan wondered why, but then he saw it. Myo-sin had, in that brief moment of distraction, succeeded in attaching the talisman to the Manor Master's forehead. Forming a hand seal, Myo-sin began to chant, a torrent of words escaping his lips. As the talisman made contact, the Manor Master's entire body convulsed violently. Seizing the momentary reprieve, Go-chan tried to wrench his wrist free from the possessed man's grasp. But the instant he exerted pressure, the grip tightened again, with a terrifying, renewed force. Go-chan's wrist twisted unnaturally. A bone pierced through his flesh, a sickening white shard protruding from his skin. A raw, agonizing scream tore from Go-chan's throat. It was remarkable that he managed to endure the pain, the broken bone jutting out from his flesh. But then, as the blood oozed from the open wound and touched the Manor Master's hand, a horrifying transformation occurred. The strange phenomenon, previously bulging in black around the Manor Master's heart, began to move. With a surging, repulsive momentum, it flowed into the Manor Master's right arm, seeking out Go-chan's injured wrist. "Eek! Go!" Chan shrieked, terror gripping him as the blackness rushed towards his wrist at an impossible speed. Myo-sin, his voice now imbued with a desperate guttural power, chanted the incantation once more with even greater ferocity. At his renewed chant, the strange phenomenon squirmed and convulsed violently, trapped between the Manor Master's wrist and elbow, unable to move further. "Guard, go!" Chan urged, his voice choked with pain and fear, desperate for any action to remove the Manor Master's grip. "Please do something." With the killing intent mixed in, the impurities had become too strong. "Just endure a little. If the strange phenomenon spreads, you'll be in danger too." Myo-sin's words were a cold comfort, offering little relief to Go-chan's immediate agony. "No, if you had said that earlier," Go-chan trailed off, his mind racing, searching for a way out. At that moment, the strange phenomenon, frustrated in its confinement, tried once more to surge towards Go-chan's wrist. Gasp! Go-chan, startled and desperate, twisted the Manor Master's hand that still held him, attempting to use the seizing hand technique to free himself. Then, something utterly unexpected happened. The Manor Master's wrist, the one still clamped onto Go-chan's own, was severed. Go-chan stared, his mind reeling. The one who had done it was Mok Yong-un. In Mok Yong-un's hand, now held casually, was a sharp sword, one of the decorative weapons that had hung on the wall. Go-chan was completely, utterly perplexed. Although he had been in mortal peril from the strange phenomenon, he had never imagined such a drastic, brutal solution. To cut off the Manor Master's wrist? It was unthinkable. Diviner Myo-sin felt the same crushing disbelief. Cutting off the Manor Master's wrist? Just who is this guy? The Manor Master was the venerated head of Yeon Mok Sword Manor, yet this stranger had acted without a shred of hesitation, without a moment's thought for the consequences. As the wrist was severed, the strange phenomenon that had climbed into it began to writhe, attempting to retreat back into the Manor Master's body. "That's it," Myo-sin thought, a sudden desperate hope igniting within him. Another opportunity had presented itself. If the strange phenomenon targeted the heart again, he could, perhaps, control it with his talismanic techniques and somehow suppress the rampaging energy, along with the contaminating killing intent. However, just as the strange phenomenon was about to pass the elbow and move towards the shoulder, Mok Yong-un, with a sudden, decisive swing of the sword, cut off the entire arm below the shoulder. The limb fell to the floor with a wet thud, the dark entity trapped within it, unable to escape back into the host body. Diviner Myosin was so utterly shocked, so profoundly dumbfounded, that he could only stammer, "You. You." He wanted to articulate his outrage, his disbelief, but the words caught in his throat, lost in the sheer audacity of the act. To Myosin's choked cries, Mok Yong-un replied nonchalantly, his voice utterly devoid of emotion. "Isn't it better than trying to send it back through the body?" On the floor, the severed arm of the manor master writhed, the black blood vessels bulging and squirming like a fish out of water. The sight was horrifying, a visceral testament to the desperate measures taken. On the other hand, a faint, almost imperceptible color was beginning to return to the manor master's pale face. A morbid success, perhaps, but a success nonetheless. The sight was enough to curdle the blood, turning Guard Go Chan's stomach. The severed limb, still writhing with an unnatural life, seemed to defy all logic, a macabre spectacle. But more disturbing than the grotesque twitching arm was the man who had so casually, so ruthlessly performed the amputation, this young man, purporting to be Mok Yong-un. His actions were not just bold, they were utterly fearless. Who in their right mind would sever a warrior's arm without a flicker of hesitation? The manor master's life hung by a thread, yet this act was extreme. Go? Chan felt a knot tighten in his gut. What would Lady Seok say? What would the other young masters do when they discovered this? The consequences would be severe, regardless of the urgent reason for the act. With practiced speed, Go-chan tore a strip from his own tunic, wrapping it tightly above the mangled stump on the manor master's arm. He secured it, a makeshift tourniquet, hoping to staunch the flow of dark blood. A shudder ran through him. Diviner Myosin, his eyes fixed on the manor master, finally released a ragged breath. The immediate change in the manor master's pallor offered a grim validation. While utterly unorthodox, the brutal excision of the arm had served its purpose. Sometimes, in the direst cases, concentrating impurities into a single limb and then severing it was indeed a desperate, final solution. The sheer absurdity of the situation gnawed at Myosin. This impudent youth, clearly ignorant of strange phenomena and their intricacies, had made such a radical yet effective judgment. It was enough to make him click his tongue in disbelief. Yet, this extreme measure came with a heavy price. Amputating a limb from the head of a powerful clan carried immense political ramifications. The aftermath would be a quagmire of accusations and explanations. Myosin plucked a talisman bearing the characters "suppress" from the manor master's forehead. He pressed it firmly onto the severed arm, which continued to convulse and leap on its own. His fingers wove through a complex hand seal, and a low, guttural incantation spilled from his lips. The arm bulged, a grotesque mass of black, engorged blood vessels. Even Go-shan recoiled, averting his gaze, but the young man, Mok Yong-un, watched, mesmerized, a strange curiosity in his eyes. The talisman pulsed, scorching the flesh beneath it. The bulging veins began to recede, the abnormal swelling subsiding slowly. A profound disappointment settled over Myosin. He had perceived it now. A malevolent, killing intent interwoven with the strange phenomenon. This was not merely an illness or an accidental affliction, it was a curse, meticulously placed. Usually, such a trace could be reversed, leading back to the culprit, revealing their identity. But with the phenomenon isolated in a dead piece of flesh, tracing or harming the perpetrator was impossible. This fool had ruined everything. Myosin's plan, to perform a swift, moderate purification, prove his innocence, and escape this treacherous place, was now shattered. He could not deliver what Madame had so desperately desired. A cold, sharp press against his neck jolted Diviner Myosin from his thoughts. The incantation died in his throat, replaced by a sudden gasp of fear. A blade, against his skin. He turned his head slowly, his eyes wide. It was Mok Yong-un, his face unreadable. "Young master!" Go-chan exclaimed, aghast at the sudden escalation. But the boy merely raised a finger to his lips, a silent command for quiet. Go-chan's protest died unspoken. Myosin felt a cold dread begin to seep into his bones. What was this boy thinking? Mok Yong-un's voice was calm, unsettlingly so. From what I gather, you are called a diviner. Is the Manor Master's current state of life and death connected to this? Can't you see? Myo-sin stammered, his throat suddenly dry. Your Manor Master has been consumed by a strange phenomenon. And what exactly is a strange phenomenon? The question was simple, yet fundamental, cutting through Myo-sin's carefully constructed expertise. He swallowed hard. He needed to finish the exorcism, to leave, but this boy was unpredictable. Young master, Myo-sin pleaded, trying to keep his voice steady. I will explain everything, but please remove the sword. If this is not properly purified, the Manor Master's condition may worsen. Mok Yong-un's eyes narrowed. Are you certain? What? Myo-sin blinked. The body part has been separated, yet it can worsen again? Mok Yong-un's question struck at the heart of Myo-sin's authority. People usually trusted diviners, those who dealt in such bizarre occurrences, as experts. But this youth was openly doubting him. Myo-sin adopted a calm facade, despite the fear coiling in his gut. Look here, how could I lie when I'm performing divination after receiving money from Madam? At this rate, the Manor Master's life is in danger. The blade pressed deeper, a thin line of warmth blossoming on his skin. Myo-sin gasped, his composure shattering. What is this? Are you truly determined to ruin everything? I don't know who you are, young master, but if the Manor Master dies, it could all be your fault. If the Manor Master passes away, Mok Yong-un countered, his voice flat, devoid of emotion, it would be the fault of you, who couldn't properly perform divination despite being paid. How, then, would it be my fault? Myo-sin was stunned into silence. This bastard showed no signs of wavering, no concern for the Manor Master's life or death. A chilling thought surfaced. Could he, like Madam, be hoping for the Manor Master's demise? It was a possibility Myo-sin had encountered countless times in the power struggles within great clans. Don't think too much, Mok Yong-un's voice cut through his thoughts, sharp as the blade. Just answer the question. The blade pushed further, a pin-prick of agony. Panic seized Myo-sin. If the young master also wishes for the Manor Master's death, I will do as you wish, so please spare my life. Also? Mok Jung-un's voice was a whisper, yet it froze Myo-sin. What? Who wished for the Manor Master's death? Myo-sin's expression hardened. He had gambled, and he had lost. Who is it? Mok Yong-un's grip tightened. Your young master. I didn't mean it that way. Is it, madam? The question hung in the air, heavy with accusation. Myo-sin's lips were sealed. He searched desperately for an excuse, but the direct hit had robbed him of words. Go. Chan watched, dumbfounded. He had thought the boy was mad, putting a sword to the diviner's throat. But could this entire situation have been orchestrated? Cold sweat beaded on Myo-sin's forehead. Young master, madam, simply, he began, his voice trembling. It would be better not to roll your eyes, Mok Yong-un interrupted, his voice still unnervingly calm. In a situation like this, honesty might be the way to survive. Why, young master, I think I might put more force into my hand. The blade moved fractionally, digging deeper. Eek! Myo-sin's composure finally shattered. Madam told me to find out where the secret manuals and the Manor Master's seal are from his mouth, even if I don't have to save the Manor Master's life. The truth spilled out in a torrent of desperate words. He had faced many trials, many cunning opponents, but this young man, he seemed truly capable of severing a head on the spot. Secret manuals? Manor Master's seal? Mok Yong-un's gaze shifted to guard Go-chan, an unspoken question in his eyes. Go-chan felt a wave of nausea. He was trapped. He had never imagined Madam capable of such brazen treachery. Their own allegiance, tenuous at best, was supposed to shift to the second young master, not Madam and her eldest. But if Mok Yong-un hadn't intervened, the eldest young master would have inherited the Manor Master's position before they could make a single move. Gargo-chan, Mok Yong-un prompted, his voice laced with an unnerving politeness. Why, yes, Madam ordered it. So what should we do? The question hung heavy, a challenge. Go-chan's mind raced. What was he supposed to do? Even knowing Madame's plot, he was powerless to act against her directly without incurring her wrath. Interfering would only make him a target, a dangerous loose end. His thoughts swirled in a chaotic storm. The secret was out. Madame's intentions were laid bare. There was only one path left to ensure his own survival, to navigate this treacherous current. A bitter taste filled his mouth. He never thought he would utter these words. "Young master, we need to save the manor master's life, otherwise Madame will target you." Mok Kyung-un nodded slowly. "Because I interfered, right?" "That's right." Go-chon confirmed, his voice strained. Diviner Myosin, desperate for any chance of survival, quickly interjected. "Why, young master? I can save the manor master's life. Since the strange phenomenon has been separated from his body, if we purify the severed arm, he will be safe. I will definitely save him, so please." "So you can save him?" Mok Yong-un asked, his gaze fixed on Myosin. "Yes." "So," Myosin stammered, hope flickering in his eyes. "But I'm more curious about something else." Mok Yong-un's voice cut him off, a chilling undertone. "What is it? I will tell you anything." Myosin's eagerness was palpable. "You said this strange phenomenon was threatening the manor master's life," Mok Yong-un began, a slight smile playing on his lips. "So how are you going to find out what Madame ordered from the manor master?" The question struck Myosin like a physical blow. He froze, his mind reeling. He hadn't anticipated such a specific, incriminating query. He knew the answer, of course, but admitting it, it was a dangerous precipice. A hand, strong and unyielding, closed around Diviner Myosin's neck. The pressure was firm, a silent promise of oblivion. Mok Yong-un's voice was a low growl, devoid of patience. "Don't think. When I ask, I expect an immediate answer without hesitation. I don't believe there's a need to keep unnecessary people alive." Myosin swallowed hard, his throat constricted by the boy's grip. He could offer no immediate response. No answer again. As expected, Mok Gyong-un began, tightening his hold. I was going to control the strange phenomenon and make the manor master speak directly." The words burst from Myosin, raw with terror. Mok Gyong-un's face transformed, a bright, disarming smile spreading across his lips. Yet it held no warmth. "If you can do it, why are you thinking so hard?" Please spare my life," Myosin whimpered, tears pricking at his eyes. "If Madame hadn't ordered it, I would never have done such a thing. I will purify the strange phenomenon right away, so please." "Nom." The single word, calm and resolute, crushed Myosin's fragile hope. "What?" he whispered, utterly bewildered. Mok Young-um pointed towards the still unconscious manor master. His smile widened, a predatory gleam in his eyes. "Try doing what you just said." Myosin stared, his jaw slack. "You, what are you? You said you can control the strange phenomenon and obtain what you want from the manor master's mouth, right?" Mok Yong-un's voice was a silken trap. The implications of his demand hung heavy in the air. Diviner Myosin's face went ashen, his blood running cold. Beside him, Gargo-chan's expression hardened, a mirroring horror in his eyes. The boy wasn't just ruthless. He was a master manipulator, twisting their own words into a terrifying command. The diviner, Myosin, stood stunned by the young master's request. He had anticipated pleas to save the manor master's life. Instead, Mok Gyong-un demanded control of the demon, seeking information from the manor master's lips. The air in the chamber crackled with a strange tension. Guard Go-chan, equally bewildered, leaned in close to Mok Gyong-un. He whispered his confusion. What was the young master attempting? Mok Gyong-un's faint sneer offered no comfort, only a dismissive question in return. The implication was clear. Go-chan was to observe, not to question. A chill ran down Go-chan's spine. This man was unpredictable. He harbored a silent worry that this audacious plan might unravel into a disaster. Yet, he knew resistance was futile. Mok Gyong-un's gaze, sharp and demanding, urged Myosin to proceed. Myosin swallowed, his hesitation palpable. He retrieved a small wooden doll, no larger than his fist, from a boxwood case. Mok Gyong-un watched, a suspicious arch to his brow. The doll, the diviner explained, would serve as a medium. Direct contact with the demon would imperil the manor master's life and spirit anew. Mok Gyong-un's indifference was a stark contrast to the diviner's apprehension. Myo-sin inwardly sighed. These people seemed to care little for the Manor Master's fate. His own life, however, was on the line if this ritual failed. He eyed the severed arm, now calm under the talisman's suppression. This was a curse, born of murder. A single error could be catastrophic. Sweat beaded on his forehead. Myo-sin affixed the 7 stars talisman to his own chest, protection against any errant curses. With red ink, he inscribed 2 more talismans, one with Thasis, day, and another with tongue, alongside intricate symbols. He attached the Dae talisman to the wooden doll, winding red thread around its head. "Step back," Myo-sin cautioned, his voice tight. He began the hand seals, directing them towards the Manor Master. The Manor Master's body began to convulse, a macabre dance. Slowly, Myo-sin shifted his focus, moving his hands towards the wooden doll. An eerie energy emanated from the doll. The Day character on the talisman glowed with an unsettling dark light. The wooden doll seemed to stir, almost alive. "Guard." Go-chan shuddered. Demons and divination were beyond his understanding, unsettling in their strangeness. He watched, nerves frayed as Myo-sin carefully moved the doll towards the demon-consumed arm. The moment the doll rested before it, the suppressed arm reacted. Blood vessels writhed, threatening to burst forth. Myo-sin swiftly removed the suppression talisman. The arm, now unbound, surged with hideous veins. It seized the wooden doll with a horrifying grip. A sharp groan escaped the Manor Master's lips. "Go!" Chan gasped. The Manor Master was reacting to the doll's torment. As the grip tightened, the Manor Master cried out in agony. "Go!" Chan risked a glance at Mok Gyong-un, who remained expressionless, his gaze fixed on the scene. A chilling, unseen something flowed from the severed arm into the gripping doll. Myo-sin, mid-incantation, felt a wave of relief. The demon had accepted the deception. It believed the doll to be the Manor Master. This was the core of his trickery, and it had worked. Then, faint cracks spiderwebbed across the doll's surface. Myo-sin's eyes widened. This doll, carved from refined birch, was incredibly resilient. For it to crack so soon meant only one thing. The demon's killing intent was overwhelmingly potent. This was no ordinary spirit. Panic flickered in Myo-sin's mind. This entity, steeped in such raw malevolence, seemed uncontrollable. To force it might shatter the doll, unleashing the demon entirely. "Young master, I don't think—" His words caught in his throat. Mok Gyong-un's eyes, devoid of warmth, fixed on him. They were the eyes of the dead. A shiver traced Myo-sin's spine. He saw Mok Gyong-un casually turning a sharp blade in his hand. Myo-sin understood. The young master wouldn't heed a mere warning. He needed proof. Then an idea, ingenious and desperate, flashed through his mind. A lifeline. "Young master," Myo-sin began, his voice carefully neutral, "I can control the demon. But this information, it seems quite vital. Would it be acceptable for Go-chan to remain and hear it?" He gestured subtly to Go-chan. Go-chan, momentarily confused, quickly grasped the underlying meaning. The secret martial arts manual, the Manor Master's seal. Was a subordinate permitted to hear such things? "I will step out," Go-chan offered, sensing the delicate power play. Mok Gyong-un gave a slight nod, a silent assent. Go-chan exited, the door creaking shut behind him. Myo-sin recommenced the roaming incantation. The wooden doll thrashed violently, mirroring the agonized groans now tearing from the Manor Master's throat. Another crack appeared on the doll's chest. It was faltering, but Myo-sin pressed on, forming the tiger hand seal. "Hurry as I command, answer the call." A hoarse, echoing voice, as if from a hollow void, emerged from the Manor Master. "W who? C calls, M me, me." More cracks marred the wooden doll. Myo-sin's brow was slick with sweat. "Hurry as I command." "Answer where the Manor Master's secret manual and seal are located." The questions sent convulsions through the Manor Master's head. His eyelids fluttered erratically. Cracks raced across the doll's eyes and neck. It seemed like it would shatter at any moment. Then the Manor Master's lips parted, a rasping whisper escaping. Medicinal, hall, underground, jung, stone, door, inside. Meo Sin mentally catalogued the words medicinal hall underground, the Jung character, stone door. He was about to press for more, but then a sickening crunch filled the air. The wooden doll crumpled, disintegrating into a grotesque pile of splinters. The turbulent, eerie energy released from its shattered prison surged along the red thread connecting it to the manor master. "Young master, cut the thread!" Myo-sin screamed, his voice strained. Mok Gyung-un reacted instantly. He realized the ritual had gone awry. His sword, a swift arc of steel, descended, severing the thread. The turbulent entity, deprived of its path, seemed to hesitate. Myo-sin held his breath. Had it worked? No. With a spectral wail, the energy surged, climbing the sword with impossible speed. Ma Gyung-un instinctively tried to release the hilt, but it was too late. The sword was short, the thread a tangled maze. A chilling sensation, like ice, rushed into his hand. It coursed up his arm, invading his very being. Mok Gyung-un's body convulsed, as if struck by lightning. A triumphant smirk touched Myo-sin's lips. It had worked. The wooden doll had never been meant to contain such a powerful, killing, intent-filled demon. Myo-sin had anticipated its failure during the 6 people roaming technique. His plan had been to redirect the demon, to transfer it. And it had succeeded. He pulled a suppression talisman from his robe and slapped it onto Mok Gyung-un's convulsing forehead. 2 birds, 1 stone. The manor master's secrets were revealed, and this infuriating young master now carried an incurable burden. Demons, unlike humans, learned. Having survived an exorcism and the 6 people roaming technique, this demon was now beyond removal through Myo-sin's deviation techniques. Myo-sin felt no remorse. He had been pressured. If Mok Gyung-un became disabled or died, it was a consequence of his own arrogance. All that mattered was the madam's request was fulfilled. The world swam into focus, blinding white. Zhang looked around, disoriented. The gentle trickle of water mingled with the distant chirping of birds. He recognized this place, the spring where he fetched water each dawn. A strange sense of unease settled upon him, a lingering feeling of forgotten events. Had he merely drifted into a dream, or perhaps spaced out for a moment? The nagging sense of something lost persisted, a phantom memory he couldn't quite grasp. He sat for a time on a smooth rock, pondering the blankness before finally rising. He shouldered the water frame, the familiar weight, a comfort. He needed to hurry. Grandfather would surely scold him if he was late. The mountain path, steep and winding, was etched into his very being. He could navigate it blindfolded, so many times had he traversed its winding curves. The water in his containers sloshed with each rhythmic stride, yet not a single drop escaped. Grandfather's strict lessons had ingrained perfect balance. He ran, the forest blurring around him. As he neared the summit, a sudden alarming sight arrested his progress. A plume of black smoke, thick and ominous, billowed into the sky. It rose from the direction of his home. Zhang's heart seized. He dropped the water frame, the containers thudding to the earth, and sprinted with a frantic urgency. The heat hit him first, searing and acrid. His house was engulfed in a furious blaze, flames devouring wood and thatch, his face contorted in a mask of horror. He scanned the chaos, then veered towards the back of the burning structure. There, a small vegetable garden lay where his grandfather cultivated medicinal herbs. Grandfather would always be there in the early morning, tending to his plants. "Please, please," Zhang pleaded, his breath ragged. He burst into the garden, then froze, his eyes, wide with disbelief, fixated on the ground. Something blood-stained lay scattered among the orderly rows of herbs. It was grotesque, things that should have been hidden within a body, now strewn haphazardly. He gritted his teeth, a raw animal sound. The trail of blood, interspersed with unspeakable fragments, led down the hill. He followed, his mind screaming denial. Then he saw him. "Grandfather!" The cry was torn from his throat. His grandfather lay there, only his upper body remaining, the lower half ripped away. It was a sight of unspeakable brutality. Yet impossibly his grandfather's face, pale and bloodied, stirred. He struggled to lift his head, clinging to the barest thread of life. Zhang's sanity felt poised on a knife edge. Standing beside the ruined form was a figure. Its eyes were black, utterly devoid of whites, its face a chilling pallor. Zhang felt no recognition, only an immediate, profound revulsion. A silent question seemed to emanate from the dark figure. "Is that what you desire most?" Jung's pain, his despair, was a palpable thing. The black-eyed entity, observing his agony, snapped its fingers. A bizarre shift rippled through reality. Jung, consumed by enraged grief, stumbled back, bewilderment replacing his fury. What is this? The horrifying image of his grandfather at the foot of the hill vanished. He whipped his head around. The burning house was gone. His home stood intact, just as it always had. The vegetable garden, moments ago a gruesome scene, was pristine. And there, amongst the herbs, his grandfather stooped, rubbing his back as he always did, plucking herbs. "Grandfather," Jung breathed, the name a whisper. His grandfather turned, a mild rebuke in his voice. "If you're here, why are you just standing there blankly instead of helping?" The familiar voice, the ordinary scolding, washed over Jung like a balm. An overwhelming wave of emotion surged through him. He didn't understand what had just happened, but the realization struck him with crushing force. His grandfather was precious beyond measure. He would never lose him again. His grandfather was the sole reason he, a boy who should have died, had been allowed to live. From behind him, the black-eyed being watched, a flicker of satisfaction in its featureless gaze. Yes, stay with your grandfather forever. Never lose what's precious to you again. At that very moment, Jung, who had been trembling with emotion, spun around. His eyes, no longer filled with a dazed wonder, were baleful, like those of a predator, fixed directly on the black-eyed being. The entity's brow furrowed. This was impossible. Jung shouldn't have been able to see him, to recognize him. Then, swift as thought, Jung's 2 fingers plunged forward. They dug into the black eyes, gouging, tearing. The black-eyed being writhed, a silent scream of agony tearing through its form as its eyes were brutally plucked out. Jung spoke, his voice chilling, devoid of mercy. "I don't know what you are, but you're quite annoying. To play tricks using my deceased grandfather.